All right, I think we're live. So welcome on to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Sorry I'm a few minutes late here. My phone was being a little weird, but we are up and running, I think, here. So anyway, hope you're all having a great weekend here. Thanks so much for stopping by. Like all the other usual live streams, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. I'll give priority answering to anyone who has a super chat or a super thanks, as well as anyone who's a member there with the green usernames. They always get that priority answering. If you'd also like that, there's always a link in the description. And I see we have Kevin, Anthony, Still a Buster, Theodore, Brian, Danny, and let me see, Lancewoth, Nicholas, Kappa, Stratus, and Michelle, Wheatman, Luke, and Will from San Diego. Thanks for stopping by, everyone. I really appreciate it. So we'll get right into it here. I'm happy to be back on a Sunday too after last week's Saturday live. But let me see. Anthony says, hope everyone's doing well. What are your thoughts about the ZR1 and GTD battle? I love it. I love it too. It's really great to see, Jim Farley saying like, way to go, guys, and friendly competition there. And so, I think it kind of reminds me of the olden days, not even so long ago, just, in the past, decade and a half where we had, more competition, since there is no direct Camaro versus Mustang thing anymore. I kind of miss, them kind of going at each other's throats. And even with, Charger, and Challenger, now that's kind of a different thing. You don't really have that direct competition, at least until the 6-cylinder version comes. And so, yeah, I mean, it's been really fun to see, and hope there's more of that. And I also, though, I'd love to see, I'm actually writing an article for Car Buzz that kind of touches on this a little bit, but I'd love to still see something above the Mustang, because, I think that's, with Corvette now being mid-engine, it's kind of a whole nother league. Like GTD is an amazing car from everything I've seen, but it still is a front engine, rear-wheel drive kind of thing, and that has some limitations compared to a supercar platform like the Corvette. And I'd love to see them bring Thunderbird back with its original intent. Back in the 50s, it was supposed to be a Corvette competitor. And Mustang can do its thing, but I think if they wanted to have something beyond Mustang and something to really be intense, I think they could actually make Thunderbird like a mid-engined intense thing. And I mean, with a Thunder kind of connection, you could do an EV version, or just have something gas, steal an engine from the Mustang, but put it mid-engine and do something properly aggressive for competing with Corvettes. But in the meantime, seeing GTD and ZR1 is awesome. And it's always fun to see competition among brands, and healthy competition, because that's what drives the ball forward. I think one of the real big reasons why we don't have any new WRX STI is because Evo left the scene. Those two were always at each other's throats, and Evo dropped out, and then Subaru got lazy, I'd say, with WRX STI. I think now GR Corolla has kind of taken up that mantle of, being that manual all-wheel drive turbo competitor. But, that was Subaru made the decision about STI, basically, I think either like it was like a couple of weeks before GR Corolla, because it was hilarious how I remember like STI got canceled, and then like the next week or two, GR Corolla came onto the scene. But I think that some of that stuff, I know right now, a lot of these car companies are in this, panic with tariffs and, the electrification switch over and everything, that a lot of them are just in survival mode. So a lot of them probably don't have the luxury of, just blowing R&D money on, doing all the fun, enthusiast projects that everyone in the company would like to see done. But, I think competition is very important to improve everything. It improves all the products, because again, they're always trying to one up the other, and in the meantime, all of us get better products as a result of that rivalry. So that's the wonderful thing about competition in business. Is one of the few good things about that is that it does at least give us some pretty cool products. But yeah, I love that. And Still Buster says, no cool car spots, but my WTF spot of the week was a new Camry with the rear wheels extremely cambered out. Interesting choice, to say the least. That is surprising. Yeah, there's a guy around here that has a current gen Civic, so brand new car that is slammed, like not just like a lowered car, like slammed to the ground, like cambered out, super intense, like bumper dragging on the ground. And I'm like, usually you see that with like older cars, but on a car that you probably have like a finance agreement on and everything, and you're, it's like really heavily modified like that. Just kind of, you don't see that a whole lot these days. And so that's, that is interesting. Some people decide to do it that way. And let me see here. Lance Wall, thanks so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate that. Happy to see Darnell was able to get one, Steven, and Ryan, and a few others there too. So that's awesome. And thanks so much for your generosity, Lance Swath. I really appreciate it, and hope you're doing well too. And let me see here. My interesting spot, by the way, this week I saw. I think it was like a mid 90s. I never remember the when the generations end and begin for the Celica, but it was a Celica that had the more bulbous, quad eye kind of look. It was a convertible version of those, one of those that I saw out, and I was like, wow, that is very rare to see. I haven't seen, a Celica of that generation in a while, and then to see a convertible one definitely has to be a rare one. So that was cool. And that was probably the most standout thing that I saw. I also saw a cool 1949 or 1950 Ford hot rod, or actually it was a 51 Ford hot rod out tonight that was had like the ghost flames in blue, and it was kind of a cool look. So yeah, let me see if anyone else had any cool spots here. That I see Theodore saying hello, and Brian and Kevin as well. But Danny says, drove alone on Friday, then drove with my younger brother with it today. Rare spots were a first-gen Mercury Mountaineer, a 69 Buick Skylark GS, very cool, and a fully loaded 1998 Chrysler Cirrus LXI with its factory gold wheels. Now that's a cool spot. Yeah, I mean, around here I don't see anything of that 90s Chrysler generation really at all anymore. It's unfortunate. So that's a cool spot. Anthony says his spot was a new 01 at my local Chevy dealer. It's ridiculous. I bet. I have yet to see one. I think maybe maybe I saw one at the New York Auto Show, just on the show floor, but have not seen one, out in the open or anything yet. But hopefully they start showing up here soon now that they're actually on sale. And Danny says, still in search of a first car. Looked at a 2006 Forester 2.5 XT, and our insurance would go up $2,500. Man, that's unfortunate, because Forester, you'd think it wouldn't be a bad insurance rate. That's crazy. Parents are deciding if I don't get a car until after I turn 18 to help with insurance costs. That's tough. Yeah. I mean, I don't recall the specifics of how I had it set up. I think for my first car, though, I think it was just cheaper if like the car was still like my dad's and it was a car that was already insured, in the family, and they just added me as a driver. Maybe that was cheaper. I don't know, but I'm sure that still drives it up either way. But yeah, well, best of luck trying to find something that has a low insurance rate, or, just waiting. That's tough. Best of luck in that search. And Lance Watt says, good evening, everyone. My spots this week are a gray GT500 and a first gen Raptor. I hope everyone has had a wonderful weekend. You as well. Yeah, that's Gen 1 Raptors. I don't see too many of those around anymore either, because they have kind of aged out. But yeah, it's awesome. And I'm surprised, at least around here, that I don't see more, because, it was the only V8 one aside from the Raptor R. And you'd think they'd be highly collectible. Maybe they're all just being mothballed or something, but I don't see too many anymore. And Nicholas says, hi, everyone. Saw a C7 Z06 at Cars and Coffee this morning, and a Fiat compact car with Mexico plates. That's cool. I think it was a Fiat Argo in a beautiful red. That's awesome. It's always fun seeing the Mexican plates. I saw there was like a Volkswagen Polo a couple years ago on, I think it was actually like, I can't remember if it was like Guatemala plates or something like that. It was something even further south in Mexico, and it was pretty crazy to see. But yeah, it's always fun to see that kind of stuff. And that also, every time I see a car up here with those kinds of plates on it, I'm like, they say these cars are like not safe to be sold in America, and that's why, we don't have them here and all that. But like, they're already on the roads. It's the same with the Chinese cars. They're like, oh, we can't have Chinese cars because surveillance, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, there's already people that buy them in Mexico and are driving them on our roads. And like, it just, it seems like that kind of makes part of that argument fall apart. I know it's like, only a few cars instead of tens of thousands, but especially when you're talking about that small stuff, like if people want to buy something small, I mean, there's no way that Fiat Argo is, less safe than a Mitsubishi Mirage. So like, why we can't have that stuff, especially with the affordability crisis we have right now in the car world and just in general. Like, I really, if there is going to be any positive to all this deregulation, like, I mean, I think it would be smart to deregulate a little bit of the safety stuff. I mean, I don't think you should have everyone driving death traps, but like, I think they should relax a little bit, especially with like the 25-year import rule. Like, I feel like that could certainly be loosened up, and just have more of an open market with that stuff. If you're, trying to argue the whole deregulation thing, like, I think those would be my things, is like, bring in the cheap stuff, bring in stuff that's, from other countries that we couldn't, get before. I think that's a great way to, increase that affordability. Take all the cars that Japan doesn't want and wants to send over here, all the K cars and stuff, let everyone have them, I think, but let me see here. And Kappa says, I saw a Shelby Cobra and a Porsche 930 Turbo today and freaked out. Very nice. That's another very rare spot. That's awesome. And Stratus says hello and says, exciting new plans, Matt. Thank you, Stratus. Yeah, as many of you probably saw the little announcement last night that I'm doing car consulting now. So that's something that I've kicked around doing for a long time. And my brother-in-law is actually very entrepreneurial, and I was just chatting with him last weekend, and he actually came up with like the same idea independently and was like, I got a great idea for you, Matt. And I'm like, I've actually been kicking this around for a while, but that was really the thing that kind of lit the fire under me to be like, I gotta just try this and see. And I actually just got my first booking here tonight, so I'm very excited to see how this goes, and hopefully, it's something that people find value in, and something that helps people. Like I said in the short, that's why I do this. I mean, even here in these lives, trying to give people advice, that's what I thrive on and what I really love, helping you guys with. And so if I can do that in a one-on-one video call with you guys, and make that even more personalized and even more helpful, that's just something I'm hoping, I can do more of. So, but thanks so much for the support, everyone. I know there's so many kind comments on that. And so, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm not getting my hopes up just yet, but I hope that it is an actual success. We'll see. And Michelle says, saw an Escalade V for the first time. Nice. It was passing through my neighborhood and thought it was a Corvette, but was thrown off to see that sound coming from an Escalade. Yeah, and it is a loud sound. It definitely wakes up the whole neighborhood when you have an Escalade V. It's so funny. I remember, like, even on the media drive for Escalade V, like, there was like people at the hotel, I think, that were like complaining just because of all the cold starts, because there was like 20 Escalade Vs all doing cold starts within the span of 5 minutes, and probably waking up everyone in that hotel. It was hilarious. I actually asked them, like, is there a way to do a like stealth start in this? And I think there's a stealth mode in it, but there's no way to do stealth mode, I don't think, before you turn it on. So I think you gotta wake everyone up with the loud start, and then you can have it quiet after that. They should have a quiet start mode, I think, honestly, like, not to like be the boring responsible person, but Escalade V would be hard to live with if you are someone who leaves the house early in the morning and you got young kids that you're worried about waking up and things like that. That's the only thing, but it's an absolute riot. Beyond that, it's I love Escalade V, one of the ultimate dailies if you need to haul a ton of stuff for a ton of people. They're awesome. I'm glad you saw one, Michelle. And Weedman says, good evening, Matt. Hello from Northern California. Hope everyone had a great weekend, and you as well. And Luke says, my grandfather really likes the Honda HR-V looks and size, but even he says it's underpowered. Honda really needs to throw the hybrid system in that. Yeah, like I've said many times before, I don't know what they're waiting for with the hybrid thing. And I don't know, maybe they're not going to do it for a while, because you would think they wouldn't have set up ADX to immediately have less power in the event that they do a hybrid HR-V. Maybe they'll roll them out at the same time for ADX and HR-V. But if not, I mean, HR-V would have more power with its hybrid than what ADX currently has. But yeah, it's strange. And I don't know, maybe, Honda's kind of pumping the brakes on their hybrid plans now, since they don't have to worry about fuel economy for the next, 3 or 4 years. Maybe they'll think that people will have less of an appetite for, something fuel efficient. but I guess we'll just have to see. And some of those things they can also put into play, I think, a little quicker depending on how gas prices go. And so if we start to see, more turmoil in the Middle East, or we start to see, stuff that drives up gas prices more, I think that could also kind of, get them to do that a little bit faster. But it's something, they should have done it, as soon as Civic launched with it, or even do it before Civic, honestly. But now that it's in Civic, there's absolutely no excuse to not have it, because it just makes HRV look bad, because it's like you're cannibalizing HRV sales and telling everyone to go get the Civic instead. And for a lot of people, they want that all-wheel drive, so it's it's strange to tell everyone to go up to CRV if you want to get a hybrid, But anyway, let me see. I see. Steven says hello as well. And Fastline says, "Hey, Matt, it's raining mad hard in South Carolina. It's a good time to watch the stream." Well, hope the rains don't get too intense there. But thanks so much for hanging. And hope it's all good. I know, we've had a lot of intense rains here, and I know a lot of the country has as well. But we've actually not had too much rain here this past week, which I'm very happy about, because I have a Miata this week, a Miata press car. And so thankfully it's a week where the weather is cooperating with me, which is nice, because when I had the LC 500 convertible a few months ago, it was like rain every day, and I wasn't able to actually enjoy it with the top down more than I think 2 times. So thankfully the Miata, I've been having some fun drop top bliss here in the summer with that, and it's awesome. But let me see. Where were we here? So Luke says, "I saw 2 EV charger coupes within an hour of each other on the Ohio Turnpike." Nice, that's awesome. Yeah, they're starting to pop up with these lease deals. People are getting them for $200 a month, and that's like sign and drive. We're not talking any kind of crazy down payment. They were really, especially the RT versions before they discontinued that, they're giving those things away. If you can still find one, they are dirt cheap. There's a tiny part of me that regrets the timing of the Fiat. I would have been heavily tempted into just spending a few bucks more for a Charger EV instead of the Fiat, but in February, when I got the Fiat, there weren't really that many deals for Charger. There was like rumblings of people starting to get like some decent lease deals on them, but it wasn't the desperation that we saw just a few months later, whether they were just discounting them like crazy. Because I would have been completely happy with even the RT version. It's still almost 500 horsepower, I think, for that slower one that no one really wanted. I would have been completely fine with that. The other thing that would make me nervous is it is, first gen tech for them, and there have been some people that have had issues with Wagoneer S just bricking and just being unreliable. So that's one of the reasons why I love the Fiat, was that it is something that's been in Europe this generation for like 5 years now. So there was a lot of the bugs already been worked out of that, even though I know it's a Fiat and it's electrical and it's Italian, and so that's usually a recipe for not a good time. But knock on wood, they seem like they've been pretty solid reliability wise. So, and also the insurance rates would be so much higher for Charger, but there still is a little bit of me that, because I love Charger EV, that would be like, man, it's not much more money from my $130 a month Fiat to go up to the Charger. But maybe we'll see what ends up happening if they still have the EV on the market and it's really discounted in a few years. Maybe I'll switch into that. We'll see. But anyway, the OKS Basis says, "Evening, everyone. Spots of the week are a 2nd-gen NSX and a super clean red GMC Cyclone. Very nice spots." That's awesome, especially that Cyclone. That's a very rare one. So yeah, that's sweet. Zion the Lion says, "Hey Matt, hope you're both enjoying the new Cadillac." We're having a blast with it. I'm so impressed with it, but I'm kind of surprised at myself for how much I'm enjoying it. I'm pretty confident in saying that I'm enjoying this more than the Mach-E, which is kind of strange because the Mach-E was kind of my idea, and Beth kind of ended up, being excited about it and enjoying it over the 3 years that followed. But, the Cadillac was something that, was also, I'm like, oh, these are really nice. I've always enjoyed them. I was super impressed with it last year, but like even tonight, like we were leaving a thing that we were at, and I was like looking forward to driving it home. It's just like, and I mean, Beth's probably starting to already get annoyed, but I think she's excited too. But I think, I've been blabbering on and on about like, oh man, like it's so smooth, it handles so nice. It's a delight to drive, and it's not sporty. It doesn't light my hair on fire and make me want to, go 100 miles an hour, but like it's so just calming in this chaotic world we're in. And again, this stage of life that I'm in, just the madness of a 4-year-old and all the, good madness, but just, all the craziness of that. And just having a calm, relaxing, comfy cruiser is just like great for a family car. So I'm especially very much enjoying the Cadillac as well as Beth is too. She's really enjoying it as well. But anyway, N-Mode 22 says, do you think the next Elantra N is going to be a bust? I don't know what, the rumors have been all over the place, but I think the general consensus that I've seen at least has been that it's going to get the 2.5-liter motor, and it could lose the manual, but it'll be 300 horsepower, Sonata N-Line powertrain with an LSD finally, I think is kind of, again, what I've been hearing. And, that sounds like a good recipe. I mean, it's going to be a little bit more of a handful all going to the front wheels there. But I think that would be great. I really hope they find a way to incorporate the manual, because that is still one of the unique things. I think especially you're going to see people drifting into that who, maybe are upset about GTI or Golf R, not having the manual anymore, and they don't want GLI for whatever reason. Elantra N's a little more hardcore and a little more focused, and a little more enthusiast focused. So I think Elantra N's got a good thing going for it, especially at its price point. And if they can stick to a similar price point and can stick to a manual and all the great characteristics of the current Elantra N, I think they'll be good. But yeah, and I don't know, if maybe we'll get an early look at how it's going to go if Kia maybe does something first with K4, if they do a K4 GT at some point, because that's kind of that next generation platform that Kia did before Hyundai, because the Elantra is dated, and we should be seeing a new one, I'm guessing sometime relatively soon. So yeah, we'll have to see how it goes. I mean, I'm a little nervous because Albert Bierman's not there anymore, at least as far as running stuff. I think he's still in like an advisory role or something. But I just hope that they still charge just as hard into the end stuff, the gas side as well as the electric side. And I mean, it sounds like the Magma stuff with Genesis is going to be awesome here coming soon. So I mean, there's definitely still a lot of enthusiast stuff, but I just hope that they don't lose sight of what makes Elantra N great. Because like Ioniq 5 N is fantastic, but it's a whole different ballgame. It's 640 horsepower. It's a lot in a good way, but it's a lot. And I think the joy with Elantra N is that it's not too much, and it's still fun. It's still cheap and affordable. And I hope they don't just chase this benchmarking of numbers, constantly one-upping each other. And I hope that they recognize like, hey, we don't have to have best specs. We can just like be really good and be really good value. And it's still, going to be something that's going to resonate with people, I think. So keep our fingers crossed. But yeah, I'm interested to see how they play that. And let me see. Linda, thanks for stopping by. And Steven says, did you do a farewell toast for the Acura TLX? I did not. I probably should. I don't have my whiskey nearby here, but yeah, I do need to do a farewell toast to TLX. I miss doing those. I used to do in the weekly update. So yeah. Yeah, I'm debating just texting Beth and having her bring in the whiskey in a glass for me. But yeah, I'd be happy to do a toast to the TLX, because I am really sad that's gone, because it was a really great car that never got the credit it deserved. But anyway, so see more discussion about the Elantra N there. Yeah, we'll keep our fingers crossed they do the right thing with that. And Trenton Car Guy, thanks for stopping by. And yeah, I see Enmo says he's ready to upgrade here. So I mean, yeah, we'll have to see. If you're happy with the current one, you just want to get something newer, there's nothing wrong with getting a 25 too to tide you over until whatever actually is coming next comes, But Kraken says, hey, Matt, first road trip test on the Outback, 2.5 hour trip. She did great. Got close to 25.8 MPG on the way up and had 26.1 halfway back home, but a Jetta was being a jerk. So it went down to 25.5. Nice. And I think actually I'll be posting, Jeremy, your Outback here as the member car of the week tomorrow. So stay tuned for that, and everyone can check out the cool manual Outback that Kraken found here recently. So I'm glad you're enjoying it though. Hope it's doing well for you. And I think, oh man, Beth was listening to the live, I suppose. Thank you. She's not coming on, but she did bring me the whiskey here, so we can do our toast to the TLX. So
hello everyone. Bye.
Thank you. All right, so we got the Maran motoring glasses, which are still available on the website there as well. But so we'll do a toast to the TLX, and also I was thinking about doing a little farewell toast to the Mach-E, because the Mach-E served us so well. I mean, zero issues really, little annoyances, but it was a really good car. So we'll do a farewell to that. Hold on, I got a little bit of cork here. But do a farewell toast, and I think this is the first live maybe that I've drank on. I can't remember if I've drank before, but I know people have wanted that in the past. I'm only doing a little bit, so don't get excited for me to do any tangents, talking smack or anything. But I'll do a toast here to the TLX. By the way, anyone who's curious, this is the Balvenie Caribbean cask, aged 14 years. Had this given to me as a gift, by the way. I am not this much of a high roller, but some nice, some good stuff there. So anyway, cheers though to the TLX. It deserved better, and sad to see it go, but cheers. And all right, so let me see here. Trent Car Guy says, saw what looked to be a restored Model T or something similar earlier this week. That's cool. Anyone who drives a Model T these days is a brave soul. I mean, my buddy Tommy from TFL, he's got a Model T, and it's so funny seeing him driving that thing through like the McDonald's drive-through and driving on the highway and all the crazy looks and stuff that it gets. It's it's always crazy. And I mean, that's a car that takes a lot of work. I mean, there's a lot of new things to learn, and hand cranking it. I mean, if you do it the wrong way, the rumor or the folklore is that it can break your arm, if you crank it and it kicks back at you. But anyway, that's cool. You saw a Model T. That's awesome. And Dave says, I just saw a Celica convertible for sale near me. Tempted. Nice. Well, I'm glad there's more than a few of them out there, I guess. That's sweet. I don't know what they're asking, but that would be a cool car. I feel like, and I don't know, maybe it's just the 90s kid in me, but I feel like, we're seeing how the Radwood scene, I think is really getting very popular. And I think also just that generation is, people who now have kind of aged out and have the money. Like, that's the stuff that they want. They're not going for the stuff from the 50s and the 60s as much. They're excited and paying big dollars for this 80s and 90s stuff. I mean, not financial advice, but I feel like buying a nice 90s car in good condition, you're probably not going to, I mean, there's no more depreciation to be had there. You know what I mean? Like, it's either going to stay flat or it will go up. And I'm inclined to think, especially stuff like Celica, Toyotas are very much, sought after. I feel like, it'd probably be a good investment, even if you don't want to drive it as much, or even if you do. I mean, either way, I think you can drive your investments. That's the great thing about car collecting. If you are someone who does that, is, it's an asset, and with currency being all over the place and who knows what's going to happen to the dollar, the way things are going, assets are very good to have. And, I think being able to collect cars that are always going to be desirable is something that is, always something. I'm actually, again, I'd love to do that if I had the spare money too, and just pick up cars that I think will appreciate someday. Cause I think that'd be a good candidate. Long story short. So let me know if you go for it, Dave. And I'm also curious about if it's like a base one or if it's one of the more rare ones. I don't really know that much about Celicas these days, but curious, what all it has. But Kraken says, also felt great to get Kraken back out on the road. She was excited too. She didn't want to activate launch control, but I got it to work after cycling it on and off. She laid a Post burnout 0 to 60 of 5.13 seconds. Very nice. It's funny. I've been seeing more Kona Ns around recently. I saw 2 this past week. There's a white one, I think, and then I think it was a grayish black one. I saw a black one the other day, and it wasn't loud enough, so I was like, I can't be cracking. But I know you're in PA, and so I'm always like, keeping an eye out to see if I happen to run across a very loud Kona N. But I'm seeing more and more of them, and I don't know if just people around here are finally buying them or bringing them in from other places or what. But another good car that, I don't know what Hyundai is doing there. I mean, they have the powertrain. They could have just copy and pasted into the new one. It fits. I have no clue why they didn't do another Kona N. That's just strange. But anyway, he says, I don't know what brand of crack she was on, but I want it. Nice. And Fastline says, insurance is literally my problem. I want a Durango 392, but I'm scared the insurance is going to genuinely cost me, especially at 18. Yeah, it is very tough. Like I kind of said last week, try to find something that's under the radar a little bit more. Like that's why, my insurance rate was lower whenever I bought my Legacy GT when I was 17, because insurance said, oh, it's just a regular Legacy. And they didn't, they didn't have it, at least back then, flagged in their system as like, oh, this has the same motor as a WRX, like it's just as fast as a WRX. They didn't flag that, so I had a much cheaper insurance rate than a WRX. So if you can find some of those cars that have a bigger motor or have something where they don't seem like it'd be anything crazy, like maybe Impala SS. I don't know if insurance companies make the distinction. I mean, I'm sure they see, oh, it's got a V8, but like it's an Impala. Maybe things like that, or any other car that typically has old drivers and like grandpas in them. If you can find like one of the old supercharged Buicks or, anything like that, like stuff like that, I think is where, you might be able to get a little bit of a workaround on the insurance rate, possibly. I need to think of more vehicles like that. That maybe even be like a good article for Car Buzz or something of like, here's 10 vehicles that should be cheaper on insurance because they're kind of under the radar, and don't scream to an insurance company that it's a liability. Let me see. Jorge says, I saw an orange McLaren today and my neighbor's green, almost black Amira. Very nice. It's awesome that your neighbor has an Amira. That's got to be a really fun sight to see all the time. That's awesome. I don't have any neighbors with any super cool cars. I wish I did, because that'd be very cool to see stuff like that every day. And let me see. Vishal says, what luxury brands do you think do the best ventilated seats? I'd say Genesis and Cadillac are probably the best in my opinion. The Germans just don't do it super intensely. They're more of, and it depends on how car companies do it. It is a ventilated seat where there's no active cooling. It's just a fan that just, circulating air through the seats. That's the way Mercedes does it. I believe that's the way Audi does it as well. And I think, I'm not sure about BMW because I'm not in enough BMWs, honestly, like test them a whole lot. But Cadillacs always get like nice and cold. And it's another reason why, it's unfortunate we weren't able to get a higher trim of the Lyriq. I mean, we're completely, satisfied we have all the, stuff we need in the Lyriq, but, the ventilated seats would probably be really good in that. So that's, I'd say, but yeah, Cadillac in the past has always done fantastic cold seats. Lincoln does very good cold seats. Because again, those ones actually pump AC through the seat instead of just a fan that's getting air from who knows where. I mean, those kinds of seats, the ventilated ones, sometimes do work better if you are in a cold car, but it just takes a while. And usually by the time the car has gotten cooled down, then you can't notice the ventilation as much. I think that contrast is what's really important. If I'm also like super sweaty, and sometimes I get in some of these ones that have weaker ventilation, you notice it a little bit more if you're super sweaty, but like, the biggest shock value is whenever, you get into a hot car, the air conditioning has just started, but the car is still hot, but then you turn on your cold seat and it's like freezing cold and gets you cooled down really quickly. And that's only possible when you have that actual AC going through the seat there. So, but yeah, typically the Americans and and Genesis are the best ones there. And I mean, that also extends to the non-luxury variants. Ford does really good cooled seats most of the time. Mustang was a little weird because it got the bottom super freezing cold, so much so you felt like you peed your pants. Then the back just wasn't enough. So that wasn't the best execution, but Ford typically does very good seats, as does Hyundai and Kia. They're actually some of the best typically. And Linda says, I never had a car until I graduated from college. Then I bought a 1964 Chevy Bel Air from my Nana. Man, that was probably an awesome first car. That is so cool. Hope it lasted you a long time, and hope you had a blast with that. But that's really awesome. Let me see. So yeah, more discussion there about the Kraken, and that's awesome. He's talking about the wheel hop too, which was something I certainly experienced. But he says it hasn't wheel hopped since I got it 2 years ago. The only good thing the previous owner did on that car. I'm guessing the mods there to stop the hop, which is a common mod on a bunch of stuff. Even the Mustang had that. You could get that kind of kit to limit that a little bit. And Danny said, I looked up online and Outback had a $2,088 annual premium in New Jersey. Doesn't help New Jersey has the highest insurance rates in the US, I believe. Oh man, well that definitely wouldn't help things then. Geez, yeah, well, I don't know how to work around that because I mean I'm pretty sure you got to have it insured where you actually live. But yeah, that's tough. And let me see. He says they actually have the 5th highest minimum liability insurance rates. Well, hopefully that means you don't get stiffed as much whenever some underinsured person hits you, because that was the pain whenever the first Mustang GT that I had, whenever that motorcyclist sideswiped me at full speed. He had like the bare minimum motorcycle insurance rates, which was basically like his insurance paid like $5,000 and there was like 16 grand damage. So my insurance company had to like kick it in and then figure out if they're going to sue him. But then he had no money because he was just, some person that had some, crappy sport bike and, didn't have any other assets or anything. And so that was annoying because I mean, like my insurance company was like, well, we got to, take the hit for this. And I think my insurance went up a little bit as a result of that, even though it wasn't my fault. So that's kind of nice if you're in a state where you actually have people having a decent amount of coverage. That's good. And Steven says, perhaps too early to say, but what do you miss most about the Mach-E? So I think the thing I miss at least the most is the phone as key. The Lyric doesn't have that. And I always have a key fob on me whenever I'm driving the vehicle. So, it usually wasn't that big of a deal. But what I've found is that there were a lot of times like where I was helping get our daughter into the car and maybe Beth was going out somewhere with her and I was just helping get them in the car. And then I always just wave by and they drive off, but a lot of times, I would come down first with our daughter and put her in, and I was able to just open up the Mach-E because I had my phone on me, and so it just automatically would unlock, and that was really nice. And in the Lyric, since we don't have that, I've had to like tell Beth to either unlock the car or wait till she's within proximity of it so that it unlocks and senses her. So that's been the only little thing that I missed. And it sounds like Cadillac will be doing keys surprisingly with iOS 26 here. And I think Cadillac is going to be one of the ones you can put the key in your, Apple Wallet or whatever. So I'm hoping that fixes that potentially. But other than that, I mean, I don't think there's anything else about the Mach-E that I miss. I mean, again, with all the discussions I've had with Beth, it's crazy how the Lyric is just so much better in every single way, pretty much. I mean, again, it's a luxury brand. It's supposed to be, but just the way everything's calibrated as well, the way Cadillac set up the throttle response and the way the brake is so much better blended with the regen braking and just all the fine tuning stuff Cadillac nailed as well. Which I guess I shouldn't be surprised by because I mean they're the same people that do the Black Wings and they're some of the best driving cars on the planet. So they have the talent there to do it. And so I guess I shouldn't be as surprised as I am, but it's just, everything else is just, I don't miss anything else. I don't think about the Mach-E. I mean, the screen's a little smaller for CarPlay, in the Lyric, and it was sometimes nice to have the giant buttons with the giant tablet in the Mach-E. But I think, also even with that, Beth and I are really appreciating having physical climate control buttons again in the Cadillac, which we didn't have in the Mach-E. And having the Mach-E, we had to wait sometimes to you'd hit the heated seat button and you'd be waiting for the screen to load for a second or two, and then it would register it versus and the Cadillac, you have a regular button on the door to turn on the heated seat, and regular button for the heated steering wheel. And I think, yeah. So there's really nothing else. Yeah, everything about the Cadillac's just better in every way. And let me see here. So I see Kraken's wondering about where PA ranks as far as the insurance. The amount of crashes and idiots we got, it makes me believe we're worse than New Jersey. Yeah. Also, Beth just texted me. She said she doesn't miss the Mach-E at all. So there you go. Yeah, the Cadillac's a big upgrade. And again, I'm so happy it was cheaper than the quotes we're getting on Mach-E for leases. So it's a huge upgrade, and it doesn't cost us anything extra. Let me see here. Kraken says that sounds like he's going through a midlife crisis. I mean, who knows? Who's to say? I mean, I'm 35 now, and yeah, I think yeah, no midlife crisis, but it is nice having the midlife crisis cars like the Miata every once in a while to go out and enjoy. But Danny says it's normal for insurance to jump $3,000 when you put a 17-year-old boy on your insurance. It basically is doubling again for other cars on the policy. That's normal as well. Gotcha. Yeah, and I forgot about the gender thing too, because yeah, I'm sure it's worse for boys. So maybe it won't be quite as painful when my daughter's getting ready to drive. Assuming, again, who knows how we'll be as far as how many people are actually driving, in 12 years. But yeah, I think hopefully insuring a girl will be a little bit easier. Maybe we'll see. And Higher Low says Explorer ST is the modern day Typhoon. USA made all drive turbo V6, and I love mine. Yeah, I mean, Explorer ST is great. I just had one not too long ago for a week, and really a great package still. I'm really happy with Explorer ST. And I think with the refresh, they really smoothed over some of the rough edges and some of the issues I had with the, first generation of it there. And yeah, it is kind of the modern day Typhoon, though. It's a fun way to put it. And Vishal says, thoughts on current state of Acura? They just seem lost and unsure about what to do. Integra is good, but Civic Hybrid makes it a harder sell aside from the manual. RDX needs a redesign. MDX is carrying them. Yeah, I'm going to drink for a little bit for this. I think, I think Acura, I think they're still finding themselves as far as, where they're positioned these days. Because it's, I think like even Mazda is really taking some of their lunch now. And I don't blame people for going for like the Mazda, because I mean, I would go for the Mazda over an Acura these days. You have like beautiful, silky smooth inline 6 turbo motor and the CX90. It handles, I'd say, actually better than MDX, and MDX is one of the better handlers previously. But so I think, they're also, Acura is also right now at this inopportune time in their product cycles where, again, Integra is, I mean, they're doing this tiny little refresh here for 2026, but it's, getting a little stale. And you're right. I think that the hybrid would have, freshened it up, and it sounds like that's not coming for 26. And, yeah, RDX, I mean, new RDX is still their top seller, I believe. So, that is going to come soon, I think, as far as a new RDX, although I haven't seen anything or heard anything, but logic would dictate that is coming soon. But I think that they are really lost, because they're talking about how they're going to get rid of the letters and numbers, and they were going to go to actual names, and Integra was supposed to be the start of that, and that made me very excited. And then we saw the announcement of RSX, which is one going back to, again, letters and just the letter soup there, and then also it's this misappropriation of names, and they've gotten so much blowback for it, and I don't know if they're going to listen to it or not, but like, the leadership's weird. And like I've complained about with Honda in the past, same thing with, no hybrid HRV. There's these easy low-hanging fruit. We're not talking about, hey, make a new S2000. I understand that's hard. I'm talking, you have stuff on the shelf. It literally bolts right in. Like, I mean, HRV and, ADX, it's the same package. It's the same, frame, same chassis. It's not hard to put the turbo motor in. You have it in ADX now. That has been proven you can put it in the HRV. I understand the hierarchy thing, but like, there's no reason why we should have hybrids and all these. We should have an all-wheel drive Accord. There's all these easy things that they could do, and instead they go and do an electric RSX. And I think also the problem too that you have to keep in mind with all these car companies with some of these things where it's like, wow, why are you launching an EV right now? It's because it was planned 4 years ago. And, we're seeing the effects of this whiplash as far as policy and as far as also not even government stuff, but as far as consumer sentiment. 4 years ago, it seemed like, EVs were going to take this huge market share really quick and be all the rage. And I think we are still seeing some nice growth. And I think that will continue despite all the disincentivization that's going to be happening and, the taxation on EVs. It's disproportionate in many cases to, the gas stuff. But so we're going to see people being penalized for having EVs. But I think even still, it's going to grow because there's just so many other perks. And once people experience that, they're not going to want to go back. That's why Beth, like, literally, she had the Mach-E, she fell in love with the electric experience, and she does not want to go back. And it's not any kind of green thing. It's not any kind of, anything other than the fact that she just likes the way it drives because she hates waiting for a transmission to figure out what she wants it to do. And that's literally the only reason why she's in an EV, because it's just better and that response is better. And so, I think that's why we're going to see EVs still grow. But I think, stuff like RSX just seems so poorly timed, but it's like that was planned in a different period in time. It just takes too long to get a car to market that you can't time it. And this is why these car companies say, like, we're not engineering stuff for any certain president. We're not engineering stuff for any certain policy. We have to have stability with policy because we need to know what to plan for 5 or 10 years from now. Not, you can't churn out something and 3D print some car, a month, later and say, ta-da, here's a new car. It takes so long to do that. And so, but yeah, it just, so it's a combination of bad timing, a bad series of events that has, put them in a bad spot, but then also they've done a lot of it to themselves by not providing the products that are right there that they can do very easily. And I don't get it. It sounds like they're going to have stuff eventually. I think, there's talks that the truck platform will get a hybrid variant at some point. And that's something that's starting to be worked on. But, and I guess that'll be set up well for 2029 if we, have fuel economy standards come back again. But, it just, yeah. I have no sympathy for them if they have easy things that they're just not doing. Then it's like you're shooting yourself in the foot. Like, straight up, like there's no other way around it. Like, and I never go on Honda events anymore because they don't invite me. I dropped off after saying no to a couple during COVID, and I don't know, I've since tried to reach back out and get back on their invite list and just had no luck. And I'm not losing sleep over it. They still send me press cars, and I'm trying to reduce the amount of trips I go on anyway. But that means I don't have any opportunities to get in front of a Honda executive and be like, what's going on here? Usually they just give you a run around. They don't want to talk about future product anyway, but like, at least being able to give them a hard time in person is something I enjoy with some other brands where I'm like, what are you guys doing? Or you guys are doing a great job. If it's something that I'm excited about and I want to, give them a high five for it. It's nice to that's one of the nice things about the media drives is being able to do some of that stuff. And like, that's why I loved like the Audi event for the A5, S5, Q5, SQ5 is I was able to tell one of the top Audi executives, like, why does this have throttle lag? And he wasn't able to give me a good answer. And he actually was like acting like, oh, what do you mean? Like, it seems fine. But, being able to, and he was like, well, I'll forward that on. And I'll, who knows if he's actually going to talk to people about it. But like, I was able to be like, look, I experienced this on the drive today. This isn't good. I want this to be good, but it's not good. And I'm going to say it's not good in that specific, type of driving experience. And so, being able to give that feedback is important. And I just don't have that opportunity with Honda. I'm sure I'm not the only person that's screaming from the rooftops. You need to have a all-wheel drive Accord. You need to have a hybrid HRV. But, it's just, I'd like to contribute to the chorus of people that complains about that stuff, but I don't have that opportunity. So, but yeah, as far as Acura, I hope that, again, they get some new product here soon. But I think it's going to be a bumpy few years for them, again, especially with Mazda taking, more and more of that premium market. But they're decently positioned, though. They do have a lot of production here in the States, so they're good as far as that goes. So there's some other things there that will hopefully help them a little bit. We'll see how everything kind of plays out once the dust settles a little bit. But I see we got a few super chats here. So YH, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, "Sup, I want to supercharge my 25 Stang GT, but Ford dealership doesn't do it in Canada. I have to drive it to Motown. And what are you sipping on?" So yeah, Beth brought me in some Balvenie that I got as a gift a while back, Caribbean cask. So we just did a toast of the TLX. So that's what we're drinking here. So but hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for the super chat. And as far as the supercharging, I wonder if you get it done in America, though, if you are going to get the warranty that you get, because otherwise, if you're not getting the warranty from the dealer, then you might as well just do an aftermarket one and save yourself some money anyway. Because there's plenty of superchargers I'm sure you can just get in Canada, and then you avoid the road trip there. But best of luck with the search there. He says you do get the warranty still, even if you install it in the US. Interesting. Okay. Well, in that case, it might be worth the road trip, I suppose. But road trips are fun. He says warranty covers Canada and America. Sorry, Mexico. Yeah, so no Mexican warranty. Interesting. I don't know why they don't give it to Mexico too. But anyway, yeah, best of luck. Supercharging is a lot of fun, and again, check out all my videos from about 5 years ago if you want, of the S550 supercharged kits that I reviewed. They're a lot of fun. And Jorge, thank you so much also for the very generous super chat. He says, "Cheers to Beth." Thank you so much. And yeah, cheers to her. She's awesome for listening and hooking us up here with some fun libations tonight. And let me see. So getting back to the other questions here. We are getting a little bit behind, so I'm going to maybe be a little more selective and try and get through these a little bit quicker so we're not too far behind. We've got plenty of time here, but just don't want it to have everyone waiting super long for their answers. I'll try not to go on tangents as long. But Steven, the Corvette guy, says, "So my Uncle Steve is thinking about buying a used Genesis G70, even a 21 or a 22. Do you think it's a good idea?" I think they're great. Now, the other thing I'd say is the nice thing with those is the long warranty, which you only get if you buy a certified pre-owned one. So they're a little more money, and I don't know how you feel about warranty coverage and reliability and stuff, or how your uncle feels about it. But I would recommend, in the case of the Genesis, paying the few bucks extra for a CPO one, especially if you're going to keep it for a long time, because then you get that full 10-year, 100,000 mile powertrain warranty. Not that I'd be super concerned about a G70 reliability wise, but just nice to have that warranty coverage. But yeah, G70 is great. It's actually on my list if I needed, like a dad car that I was using every day that had needed a usable back seat. G70 is high on my list of cars that are really nice and affordable on the used market. Are super nice. They drive great, great looks, great interior. Again, that nice warranty on them. I've always loved the G70. I think for me too, it's like a little bit. I'm a little biased, I suppose, because I used to have a Legacy GT, which really kind of reminds me of the G70 is very similar size of the old GT Legacies, and similar kind of luxury and similar driving characteristics, I think, too, as well. Although G70 is much better, but so I might be a little bit biased there on that. But the G70 is great. I really love them a lot. The only thing I'll say is back seat's tight. That's the only shortcoming of that car. Same thing with TLX. I love TLX, and it's kind of similar, competition there. Problem there too is just back seat's a little small. But if you can deal with the back seat size, or you don't care, G70 is great. Otherwise, if you want something similar, I think Kia Stinger, has a little bit of a bigger back seat. You got the bigger hatch in that, so a little more practical. Same great platform, same great powertrain, and I think that's another good alternative as well. But I love G70. Danny says the family hauler Traverse got to stretch her legs yesterday. We went to the Crystal Caves in Kutztown, PA. What a 2.5 hour drive from central New Jersey both ways. Nice, that's awesome. And he says she also got to ref out. My dad had to pass a semi and man the 9-speed auto GM put in the Traverse is responsive and snappy for the size of the car. That's great. He says it revved out to 5,500, but not all the way to $7,000. Nice. And Tion, thanks for stopping by. He says, great idea on the consulting business. Thank you. I'm glad you like the idea there. And yeah, I'm excited for it. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, just something I've been wanting to do for a while. And so I'm glad I was able to finally build that whole site and the whole booking thing. It's a lot of work putting all that stuff together, but I finally was able to get it all together and get it up on the website there. And yeah, I hope it's helpful to some people. And Wheatman says, recently saw the Super BRZ Series Purple with a limited production of 500. I like the unique color. It has silver alloy wheels. I think it's tuned by STI. What's your take on this 2025? Yeah, I think it's really cool. The purple is a really nice color. If I'm a sucker for Road Rally Blue. But if you don't want to have another blue BRZ, I think the Series Purple is a really cool color. And I mean, obviously being limited production, 1 year only color, that's going to hold its value a little bit better too, I'd say. And I love them. As far as the Tune by STI thing, I'm not sure if you can get the TS in that, because that's the only one that's tuned by STI, I believe. I don't think the Series Purple has any other stuff on it. I think it's just a regular BRZ. I could be wrong. That's my recollection of it. But either way, yeah. I mean, I love purple cars, and a purple, especially that shade of purple, the Galaxy Purple or whatever they call it, is a really cool color. So, yeah, that'd be a fun choice for a BRZ for sure. I mean, obviously, I recommend BRZs across the board either way, but the purple would be a fun choice and probably a good buy. And Danny's saying drink, yep. And Kraken says OMG Beth. And Tion says I might need those services here soon. That's awesome. Well, yeah, happy to help. It's going to be there for whenever anyone needs it or wants it. It's I'm going to always be here, and yeah, hoping to be able to do that a lot. So, and as of right now, again, I've had one person book just tonight, but otherwise wide open availability. So lots of time slots hopefully. And I'm curious if you guys' feedback too, as far as what you think about it. As far as I know for some people it might be kind of tough because I mostly have availabilities, during the day. I'm trying to, not do stuff on the weekends and not do too much at night, but I do have a few evening slots open as well for some people that work during the day there. But yeah, hopefully it works out for people. And Kraken says, I have a Malibu mixed drink I just threw together and finished. Cheers. Awesome. Well, cheers to you as well. I hope you enjoy it. And let me see. Chadwick says he's just about to buy one. I'm not sure what he's buying, but definitely let us know. I'm curious, Chadwick, what you're going to be buying. And Vishal says, cheers as I take my sip of water. That's awesome. All good. Totally get it. Not encouraging anyone to drink. But I see Luke says, my whiskey of choice is Crown Royal. It's always a good one, too. Can't go wrong with that. And two says, I would ask Matt a shopping question, but he's going to charge me $50. You already charged me for living in the basement. No, I mean, that's the nice thing about these live streams is, it's a great way to, ask your questions, especially if you're a member. It's just the $5 there. But, I think, I'm still also, going to see, how things go. And if, it's a little slower, if I get a lot of feedback that, the pricing isn't what people want to pay, then, I'm happy to adjust, just trying to figure out, what works as far as, my time and all that. But yeah, no, that's why I still love doing these lives, because this is a great way too. If you don't need one-on-one, like me talking to you directly, as far as, an actual video call, this is a great way too, to be a member or just, do a, $3 super chat or whatever, and ask, a quick question here, the different, kind of services there with, the consulting are just a little bit more specific and a little bit more like, even with the 1 hour or the 45-minute one, I have like a full questionnaire that I ask you to fill out before our call that, has a bunch of questions about what are you looking for? What do you want the car to do? Are there any brands I have a bunch of stuff to really drill down to give you like really detailed, recommendations. And so I can do a lot of good research to really drill down to what is this person most likely to enjoy. And so, so that's why it's a little bit more of a next level. And that's why it kind of builds on these live streams. I think, I clearly saw a lot of you do like to ask me questions about what you what I think about this car or that car, or, should you buy this or that? And for a lot of people, these lives are going to be totally, a fine way to do that. And that's why I'm keeping this. Nothing's going anywhere, not charging anyone anything for advice, happy to give free advice here. But again, just for those who want that dedicated time with me, I think that's kind of what I'm excited to be able to provide. And actually it's been, and fun in the past, I used to do those every once in a while. And so it's something I'm excited to kind of connect also with some of you, again, just directly, instead of just having me talk and imagining what you all look like and and all that. It's be kind of fun to kind of put some faces to some names and all that as well. But we see Immutable Dew says, thanks for choosing a Canadian whiskey, Luke. Yeah, absolutely. And that is, I don't know where Balvenie says, this is Scotland. So I'm also not supporting American whiskey there. I'm right there with the Canadians on the boycott. I do have I think I have some Maker's Mark still downstairs. But I don't think I'll be buying anymore, just in support of the Canadians, because the Canadians are still just getting so screwed with all this stuff, and I feel terrible. Our closest, obviously Mexico as well, but closest neighbors and allies, and we're treating them like garbage. And so I am firmly in support of the Canadians, and hope you guys can ride out all the crappy fallout of the policies that you guys have thrown your way for no fault of your own. And you see here, Luke, thank you so much for a super chat. He says GR86 versus BRZ. Any true differences besides the badge? Is dealer experience any better between the two, etc.? I'm just curious is all. And also, Wheatman, thank you so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate that. So Luke, as far as your super chat, I mean, I think if you watch my video on GR86 Performance Pack, I did a little bit more of a comparison last year when I had both those cars. I had that and the BRZ with only a few weeks gap between the two of them. So I was able to kind of get a pretty fresh take of what they were like kind of back to back. The main things are, obviously there's the styling differences, different front bumpers and stuff, also different packaging a little bit, but excuse me. The main thing is the suspension tuning and throttle tuning. Throttle response is quicker in GR86, and the suspension is set up to be a little bit more eager to oversteer. BRZ is a little bit more of a stable and a less oversteer happy sensation to it. Now, it obviously is still rear-wheel drive, and it still has that fun drive component, so it will still absolutely play with you, but it's just a little more resistant. You've got to push the BRZ a little bit more to get it to play with you a little bit, so that's really the main difference between the two of them. And just I don't know where I heard this, so we'll just chalk this up as a rumor. But I heard at one point that the Toyota folks were driving the BRZ version. They're like, this is not enough throttle response. This is not the way this car should be. And they were like, we got to ramp it up. So that's why, the combination of the twitchier suspension and the quicker throttle really gives the GR86, a more fun character, in my opinion. And this is the main reason why I've said all along, between the two, I would actually go the Toyota route these days. Now, the other thing, as far as you asked about dealer experience, the big difference between the two of them, and the thing that I've heard from a lot of BRZ buyers, is that you are able to order the Subaru. You are not able to order Toyotas. That's the problem with any Toyota, is there is no ordering system, which I still don't understand why. I really need to ask a Toyota executive sometime, like, why they don't allow that. But it really, for all these desirable Toyotas, or any Toyota for that matter, you are at the mercy of whatever gets shipped to the dealer. And really, Toyotas, if you want a specific color combo, you're not going to have the luxury, most likely, of showing up to your local dealer and getting exactly what you want. You're going to have to say, okay, I got to go on to, either the manufacturer's, searching, portal, or just go to Auto Trader or something like that, and find the color I want and do a road trip to wherever that color happens to be shipped to whatever dealer. Versus BRZ, you can say, and I did this back in 2012. You can say, I want a Road Rally Blue one. I want a premium package. I want to have this on it, that on it, whatever. You you can order that and then you wait, and then, you know, however many weeks later, it shows up to your local dealer exactly the way you want it. That's the big perk of BRZ. If you don't care about the handling differences, or if you prefer the handling characteristics of the BRZ better, that's the biggest perk. And that is certainly a nice big perk, especially if you are someone who doesn't love road tripping to get your car, or, you know, you just don't have the time to do it or whatever. I highly recommend, you know, go out of your little bubble, find the actual color you want, find the actual car you want. Do not compromise on that stuff, because that's how we have all the boring colors on dealer lots, because everyone just rolls up and they say, oh, well, the green color looked nice online, but you just have silver and black. I just want to buy the car today. I'll take the silver one, and I don't want to, you know, search around. I'll take the silver, and they just go home with the silver. And that's kind of been a self-fulfilling prophecy for a long time. So the dealers just order the safe colors because they know most people will settle for them, and the actual colors could be more polarizing and drive people away. So it's the safer thing to order is the boring colors. But I think there would be more people that would go for the fun colors if they were, you know, if they didn't do any extra work to get those colors. And actually, funny kind of thing. One real life anecdotal story. Sorry, again, more tangents. But I actually, my other brother-in-laws this last weekend bought a new Tacoma with the manual. And this is, again, another prime example. So he's just shopping at his local Toyota dealer. You know, does not care enough to go road trip or do anything like that. But he told me like a year ago, he was very excited whenever the Tacoma came out. He was asking me, what do you think about it, Matt? You know, did you like driving it, all this stuff? I was like, yeah, it's great. You know, and he was saying, I really want one. And I was like, okay, yeah, you know, and, you know, now we are, you know, a year later or so, and he, you know, just bought one last weekend. And he told me a year ago, he's like, I really want the manual. I want the manual. I'm like, great. Yeah, it's awesome. They offer it. It's the only one that has it these days. Go for the manual, support the manual cause, save the manuals. You know, I was very excited about, you know, him wanting that. And then he went to the dealer last weekend, and he was looking around, and he was, you know, getting close to he was, you know, just literally window shopping, you know, just looking at the ones on the lot. You know, he was just going to grab one off the lot, because he's just the type that just doesn't care enough to, you know, be super type A, like, I'm going to go figure this out like I am. And so he's just looking around, and he's like, oh, you know, well, this one looks nice. It's an automatic, but, you know, I just want a Tacoma. I don't really care that much. You know, he, again, is someone who would totally go for the manual, but he just hadn't seen one there. And he's like, oh, I'm just going to go for, you know, this other one probably. And then his dad, who was with him, says, hey, look, this one's got a manual. He's like, oh, sweet. And because that manual Tacoma just happened to be on the lot and happened to be a trim that he was okay with, and a color he was okay with, it was just a white TRD off-road trim, he went and he bought that. He bought the manual Tacoma. And I was so excited he got it. But, you know, he wasn't going to search that out. He wasn't going to go, you know, bend over backwards to get it. But he is a happy buyer of a manual Tacoma because it just happened to be there. And so I think, you know, I know it's tough for dealers because they don't want to stock this stuff because it's a harder sell. But, you know, I wish that Toyota did that custom order, because I think like someone like him maybe would have custom ordered one if it was able to show up at his local dealer. And I think it does hurt Toyota's sales, or their more fun take rates on things like the manuals or things like fun colors or fun trims, because again, you can't order them. And so it's always just like these dealers just get stuff dropped in their lap and they got to make the best of it. And I think if they had an ordering system at Toyota, it'd be so much better. So that's, you know, I think that's part of the problem why we don't see more fun cars out there, because it's just this catch-22 of people don't want to, or they don't care enough, but they will go for it if you put it in front of them. And I think that's a prime example. And so, you know, now, and my brother-in-law is so happy to have it. He's like, oh, I missed having a manual. This is great. He was so excited, you know. It was a nice big little celebration there, you know, that he got his manual Tacoma, and I'm so happy for him. And I'm very excited because I feel like they're not selling that many manual Tacomas. He might actually have a collectible on his hands in a few years, because they'll probably drop it at some point if more people don't buy them. But it's like, again, can you expect people to buy more of them if there's none on the lots? So anyway, sorry for the tangent, but another example of that very same thing of, you know, Toyota could probably do better with that if they actually opened up ordering. So yeah, but those are the differences. Getting back to the question from 5 minutes ago. But thank you so much, Luke, for the super chat. And Jorge, thanks so much for being a member for 40 months now. I really appreciate it. He says, how do you gift memberships? I believe it's in the same area as the super chat button there. I think you just click on that, and I think you're able to gift memberships that way. But maybe someone else who does it. I have never actually gifted memberships myself on any other channel, so I'm not sure exactly, but I think that's how you do it, with the little like $sign thing there. But yeah, hopefully someone else can help you if that doesn't work. But that should be the way to do it. I'm not sure if it's on all devices. Maybe it doesn't work on TV. I think you have to be on mobile in order to do that. I'm not totally sure. But anyway, thank you for your interest, Jorge, and thanks again so much for being a member for 40 months now. All right, I'm gonna get more concise with my answers here, I promise. So let me see. Where are we here? Gregory says the LC 500 is going to be a future classic. Absolutely, totally agree. Kraken says you would know if it was me. I'm the only Kona N in the state with a carbon hood. Okay, nice. Well, I'll have to keep an eye out if you happen to be around. And let me see. Yeah, Tion's saying he loves the IS 300 as well. Yeah, IS 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 really slept on these days. I think everyone forgot about IS, or just people just don't love it because of its age or something. But IS is still a great choice. I actually need to like pester Lexus for another IS because I want to revisit that car because it's been a few years, and I think it's another one where like it needs to be promoted again. Like this is still available, this is still a thing, and it's actually pretty cheaply priced compared to all the newer competitors as well. And it's still totally fine, especially if you don't need a giant, back seat or a ton of space, because it is a little smaller on the inside, but totally fine, I think, for a lot of people still. And Kraken says, speaking of which, I'll be in Pittsburgh again October 17th to the 19th. I got an extra vacation day, so I can come up on Thursday. And if you would like to do a video on it, you're more than welcome. I appreciate the offer. I'll have to let you know because I believe I may be out of town. Those couple of weeks in October are always busy with press trips. I do have 2 press trips coming up in like that middle of October. I think I'm out of town those days, unfortunately. I'll look at my schedule once I'm done here and let you know, Kraken, if I will be free, but I'm pretty sure I'll be busy, or just away. Either way, October is always like the craziest month. October and November, both those months, it's just like always like everyone wants to have their launches around then, it seems. And Dave says the Celica convertible is a 99 GT manual with 150,000 miles and some peeling paint. They're asking 10 grand, which I think is too much. Oh yeah. Yeah, so maybe we're going to see the same evolution we've seen with all the 60s and 70s classics where people are like, I know what I have, and they charge too much for it. But I mean, it is a manual. I feel like a manual convertible is probably a rare combo, and it is, if it's a GT too, then it's the higher trim. I mean, that's probably aside from the peeling paint, that's probably a prime candidate for being one of the best appreciating of the Celicas. But yeah, if it's rough around the edges and they still want 10 grand, I agree. That's probably a little much, but yeah, maybe you can try and whittle them down here. We'll see. But best of luck if you decide to try and negotiate there. It sounds like a cool combo nonetheless. And Gregory says, I'm guessing insurance is expensive on a Corvette, even though most of the Corvettes are probably driven by old people. Yeah, that is one, because there are a lot of old drivers of Corvettes, but I don't know about you guys, but around me, I do also see a fair amount of young people, especially these days. I think C8 really brought out a younger buying demographic too. So yeah, I think Corvette's one of those ones. I think the old buying demographic only helps so much. And then if you're talking about cars that are either expensive to insure, are really fast, it's still just never going to be that cheap. And also Corvette has a fairly high crash rate, I think, and not the safest vehicles. So I think all those things combined, because anything that has higher injury and death rates, also that's where the big payouts are, and that really is what jacks up prices a lot. So that's honestly, like, that and theft are the 2 biggest things. That's why like Challenger is so bad, because you have a lot of theft, a lot of injury and death in those as well. So that's the kind of stuff where that is, I think, what drives it up even more than speeding tickets or just people or insurers being concerned about expensive just insurance rates. It's more so, I think, just those big payouts that drive it up. And Kraken says, my insurance doesn't factor models into their rates. The Night and the N were literally $16 a year apart from each other. Only difference being the N is a 22 and the Night is a 21. Interesting. Okay, so that's probably a prime example of, maybe again, like they don't differentiate about the different trims, and so they think, oh, it's just a Kona. and they give you a cheap rate. So that's another one of those good cars where, yeah, they don't know the difference. I mean, Elantra N, maybe they don't either. I know Elantra is probably a little bit of a higher insurance rate than a Kona. Typically sedans are, again, just a little bit worse off in crashes. So there's that component, but interesting. Well, there's another tip. Go for a Kona N if you want to have a cheaper insurance rate. An Immutable Dew says, I test rode bikes with my learner's permit and they let me try a sport touring bike with the same motor as the crotch rocket. And funny how insurance works. That is funny. Yeah. Let me see. 2 says, saw a new Taco Sport with red seats. They had it done at the dealer. It's 2 hours away, but I think I'm gonna drive out there for it. Nice. Well, that's awesome if you go for it. Congrats ahead of time if you do. Yeah, seat skins are really easy to do. I know Cat Skin is one of the ones they've done for the Mustangs for a long time where, yeah, it's pretty. Some people it's a little harder to do it yourself, especially these days with, you have to install it just right for the side airbags that are built into the seat and stuff, and getting them out of the car is a little more of a pain, with all the wiring and stuff. But yeah, I mean, absolutely, you can swap seat skins really easily in most cases and get that custom color. That's cool. Yeah, good luck if you go for that. And Gregory says, I think there was some kind of recall or lawsuit in Japan where people were complaining if the Lexus cooled seats didn't work at all, which is crazy now. And the all-wheel drive versions for 2026 are going to have 440 horsepower, and that's not even the V model. Yeah, it's crazy the amount of power. I mean, yeah, like our Lyric's 500 horsepower and a regular just all-wheel drive Lyric. It's very nice. But as far as, I hadn't heard about the lawsuit about the cooled seats. Lexus cooled seats are decent. I'd say they're better than the Germans typically, but not as good as the Americans or the Koreans in my experience. But not terrible though, honestly. Maybe it's for a different Lexus model or something. Or maybe they just have higher standards in Japan than we do here. I don't know. And Lance Moss says, I've heard Florida has some of the worst insurance rates in the nation. That definitely makes sense for sure. And Gregory says, insurance-wise, women are significantly create more fender benders, but create more larger crashes. Yeah, I haven't looked into the stats as far as what actually, the only things that I know about, as far as women drivers for insurance purposes, as they are cheaper because typically they are lower risk, especially when you're talking about teenagers, because teenage boys can be crazy, and teenage girls are less likely to be reckless like that. So I think especially when we're talking about young people, much cheaper, I think, for girls than boys. As you get older, though, I think, there's a few other factors that, factor in. Like, I know getting married actually really helps because they think you have more to lose. When you're a parent, that actually helps because, again, you have more to lose. They also, I guess, kind of think you've settled down or you're more responsible because you've taken those leaps, as erroneous as that premise may be. But, I think there's those types of things that do lower it as well. But I think statistically, women do crash less, at least as far as the catastrophic ones goes. Because typically, I guess, especially with guys, it's go big or go home, stereotypically speaking, and so I think there's some of that's at play as well. As when a guy crashes, it's usually, they're going faster, they're being crazier, that kind of stuff. And let me see, Gary, thanks for stopping by. And David says, congrats on the Lyric. Thank you. He says, I live in an apartment without charging access, which is why I bought the Camry XLE. If I eventually move somewhere with charging, I would absolutely consider an EV in the future. Yeah, and I mean, that's what I've said for a long time, is if you're in a place where you can't charge at home, do not buy an EV. I've had a lot of people, this is one of the very common, anti-EV talking points, is like, wow, it costs more to charge than gas. It's like, yeah, if you're doing public charging, probably, especially if you're charging at, prime times and all that. I think, we're getting there, but I'd say, yes, if you can't charge in a predictable fashion, either at home, at work, or like, I know there was one person on the live here who had said that they have a pretty predictable schedule, and every Saturday or Sunday or whatever, they go to the grocery store at night, so they don't have a lot of competition with charging. They go to the grocery store at night, they plug it in, they do their grocery shopping, and they get the whole charge they need for the week, and they don't drive more than that, charge, whatever their range is for the week. And that works for them. So, there are limited instances where if you can, if your lifestyle fits into that and you have very predictable charging needs and very predictable driving needs, you could work around it. But generally speaking, yes, if you can't charge at home, do not buy an EV. It's just going to be a pain in the butt. And it's not ideal. And you lose a lot of the perks too, because like the whole perk of an EV is having that full tank every day and having to not stand outside in the cold to charge or fill up your car with gas. And that's one of the things I love, especially with Beth's car. Whenever she'd be driving and she'd be nannying and she'd be driving a bunch, with her Mercedes and stuff, me going and filling it up with gas or her having to fill it up with gas in the wintertime is just, it's not fun. I mean, it's a truly first world problem, but it's like I'm happy I don't have to do that. And I was just thinking that same thing tonight. I was driving past. I mean, it's a beautiful summer night. It's not like it'd be a bad thing to stand outside for 5 minutes and pump gas, but just driving past the gas stations and being like, man, I've been at a gas station in months. It's kind of a nice thing, once you don't have to worry about it. But yeah, this is why I think Toyota has the right idea of have something for everyone, because not everyone can make that switch for very valid reasons. And I think that's why it's great to have the hybrid component to get some of that efficiency, for people who don't have the charging access. And that's why I've said all along, ever since 3 or 4 years ago when the RAV4 Primes came out, I'm like, this is the way. Like, do something for everyone. That's the way to do it. Have the BZ4X, but also have the RAV4 Prime and also the regular hybrid. It makes sense to me. And Gregory says, I test drove a CX-30 and it had some horrible down low acceleration. It seemed like it almost had no power. That's strange. Because those cars are very responsive. It's that regular 6-speed automatic that's very good. That motor's responsive. That sounds completely opposite to the experience I've ever had in any Mazda, to be completely honest. So I would hazard a guess that there is either something wrong with that car. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I'd say if you really like CX-30 otherwise, other than the driving experience, I'd try to drive another one. Maybe you try to drive multiple ones. I'm not sure. But I would try a different one and see if it was just that one, because that sounds complete. I mean, unless there's a chance they did a different tune to the throttle or something for 2025 that I haven't experienced. But the last time I drove a CX-30 a few years ago, it was instantly responsive. And I think it's one of the best things about the Mazda, for example, compared to, like, I complain about the Volkswagen, the Taos, and the Tiguan having these delays and being a little weird. CX-30, it's like, in all these Mazdas, it's a regular automatic. It's responsive. You hit the gas, it goes immediately, and there's none of that waiting around. So yeah, that's strange. But yeah, maybe I need to do another CX-30 review and see if they've changed something in the past couple of years, because yeah, every Mazda I've been in, I've not complained about. It's the CX-90, that new 9-speed or whatever that those have, that, or it's the 8-speed. That has a little bit of a delay, but there's also some extra complication there with the mild hybrid thing and stuff. So that's the only one that sometimes I had to wait a beat for acceleration. I remember complaining about that, but any other Mazda's been no issues with that. So that's interesting. And Chadwick says, same boat as David. So many cheap EV leases I would want to try, but no home charging is a no-go for me. That sucks. The only other thing I'll say, if you want to get in on the cheap leases and get that $7,500 off, it does apply to plug-in hybrids as well. Now, I don't know if you want to be dragging around a battery that you never have charged, but if the deal is right and and you're still happy with the performance of the vehicle without it having a charge, and a lot of those, you can also have the gas engine kind of charge it up a little bit. But if you're in a case, for example, where maybe you do go to a store that might have charging, even if you're not doing it all the time, if you're able to do a little bit of charging there, and you're also getting the huge discount of that $7,500 off, that could be something. Like, I've just seen, actually, for example, like the Dodge Hornet, the plug-in hybrid version, the RT, leases cheaper than the gas one because of that. And a lot of people are just like, well, it's still a hybrid. It's same thing with Wrangler 4xe or any of the 4xes. The amount of people that don't plug in their 4xes, I think, is very high. They just treat it like a regular hybrid, and they're dragging this battery around for no good reason, but it's the cheapest way to lease one of those. And I think there's a lot of people getting that. Also, Mercedes GLC, they're, especially this month, or I don't know if it's probably, it was last month. I think it's also continuing into probably until the end of September here. The GLC 350E, those are leasing, and even the GLE, but the GLC especially is a nice cheap lease price. I've been seeing people getting those under $500 a month all day. Some people, I think, getting them like around 400. For a, again, it's over $60,000 GLC, because you get that nice tax break there, that they discount off the lease, and those are nice and cheap for the leases on those. So if you want to try and capitalize on that discount, that's one way to do it. That still gives you a drivable car, but I know that's not ideal, because most people don't like the that performance penalty of a heavy battery that hurts handling, and also does hurt your fuel economy whenever it's not contributing propulsion there without a charge. But just one other thing I want to throw out there for anyone who wants to capitalize on that, the plug-in hybrids do get that too. And that goes for also like RAV4 Prime, Prius Prime, stuff like that. And really, so sorry, I'm having fun with this. The one other fun workaround, if you do want to get, the $7,500 and you don't have charging, find a Prius Prime with a solar roof. Especially if you live in a place where you're not parked under a tree or in a garage all day. When I did a test on the solar panel on the Prius Prime, I think over the course of leaving it out, I can't remember. I don't remember if it was every day or if it was during the week. I think it was every day. Yeah. Leaving it out in the sun for the day, like all day, from morning till night, full sun. I think I got like 4 miles of range in the Prius Prime. Not amazing again, but if you live somewhere where you're not doing huge amounts of mileage, you can actually, again, have real electric range without ever plugging in that car. And it's really the greenest way to propel your car. And it's also, by the way, Prius Prime with solar roof is the best car for zombie apocalypse, because you have a built-in power source and a car that will never, ever run out of fuel. As long as you are leaving it sitting long enough, you can limp it eventually. Kind of brilliant. I really love Prius Prime, and it's just amazing in other ways. I've said in the past, you can watch my videos on them if you're curious. But that's the only thing I'll say. If you do, want to do that, because then 4 miles of your drive to and from work or whatever could be electrified. And again, you get the discount. So that's last little spitball thing I'll throw out there for you. But anyway, moving on here. So let me see. Gregory says the CX-30 was so bad it's almost unsafe. That's crazy. Yeah, that is not what I've experienced. Definitely try another one. Maybe that one had bad gas or something, or some kind of other issue, because that's strange. But I see Chadwick says he can relate to with his NA CX-50. They must have, maybe they did some tuning change. I got to drive another naturally aspirated Mazda someday. They always send turbos, so it's a little hard to try it. But I mean, those have always been responsive too. This is interesting. I'm going to have to dig into this if this is actually a thing, because then I'm going to quit recommending Mazdas if they have throttle lag as well, because I hate that. That's why I complained endlessly about it in the Volkswagens. Let me see. So Chadwick thinks it's part of just the 6-speed auto, but that's an old school transmission. That's what I love about it, is it's so old school, and it just there's none of that complication of the thinking that all these modern automatics seem to want to do. Let me see. And Gregory says, I have a Crosstrek, and although it's way slower to 60, I just feel like I get it moving. If it gets moving at all faster just to get moving, I feel like you have to dip too much into the throttle pedal in the CX-30. Interesting. I mean, the thing with the Crosstrek, that CVT is very responsive, so that is nice. And that's the beauty of CVTs that, again, people don't really give them credit for, but like CVT is instant response. It might not be the most direct response, but it is response, and that is certainly something. Maybe you're just kind of used to that. And that could be something that's kind of feeding into that. But yeah, as far as regular torque converters go, in my experience, at least, Mazda is one of the best still. Let me see. Gregory also says it's not a car everyone cares about, but I feel like the newer Nissan Leaf is going to be pretty cool for what it is. I'm excited for the new Leaf. And I don't know if you saw, Chevy just also did a teaser a few days ago for the new Bolt. And It looks like they're just reskinning the old Bolt. It looks like it's the same kind of proportions and everything, which makes me worried that it's not going to be quite as impressive as they've been leading on. If it's going to be the same car they had before, I mean, that should still do well if they keep it truly cheap. But I was kind of hoping for an actual new car. I don't know. Maybe it is new and they're just sticking to the same kind of, form factor or something. But Leaf, though, if that's going to be nice and cheap, that'll be really great. And another nice competitor. Because we just need affordable cars, and especially EV, affordable cars. So that's great. Jorge says Acura needs to embrace their Japanese Audi thing because Mazda sure is embracing the Japanese BMW thing. That's true, absolutely. And I think that's kind of always been, Acura's positioning in a way. But how do you do that anymore if you don't have, a regular sedan to compete? That it's just you're giving market share to A5. And now we got a fresh Q5. I'm starting to see those pop up everywhere. And RDX, I mean, it'll be cheaper because it's old, but it's just not as competitive as these new Audis with their very impressive interiors and the big screens and all that. YH says, once I have my supercharger on, I wish a Hellcat would. Well, it'll be something to try. Although if you're in Canada, I mean, I was just talking to Yuri from the Straight Pipes about like the crazy fines now they have for speeding. I mean, they're also cracking down here in the States. I know. I think it's Florida where they now have a little bit more of an intense. I think I can't remember if it's 15 over is now reckless and like a felony or something like that. I can't remember the exact details, but they're starting to crack down a little more. But in Canada, especially, they don't mess around. It's so you're brave, but stay safe out there. And Michelle says, totally agree with your thoughts on Acura. Mazda's really eating into their sales lately. I feel like I see more CX-90s driving around lately than MDXs. We even looked at the MDX, but felt the TX offered more. Yeah, I think TX does offer more, especially, if your top priorities are space. I think the TX is really just so well packaged, and that's why they're everywhere too. But yeah, CX-90 is really, really good. They did such a good job with that. I'm so glad for them. And Gregory says, weird. I saw Balvenie 14 for like $53 shipped and 85 or over $100 USD. Weird. That's good if it's lowered its price. That's interesting. Yeah, I got a ways to go on this bottle, so I don't need to have a refill anytime soon as far as buying another one. But yeah, I think also other things like I have some of the Clarkson's farm. Their gin is very good. I have some of that downstairs. I really want to try the James May gin. I bought some for my buddy as a gift a few years back, but James keeps coming out with these new gins, and I so desperately just want to have one of each, but I do not drink enough to justify buying any of them. But that's the next thing I want to try. I think it's some of the James May gin, because James May is awesome, and be happy to support his fun gin endeavors at some point down the road. And let me see. Danny says, who knows, maybe my grandma, her 2009 Honda Accord with almost 89,000 miles on it. Maybe he'll get that, or my grandma on my mom's side will give us the 01 Corolla again. Nice. Either one would be a great starter car too. And let me see. YH says, I kind of look like Ryan Gosling and Brad Pitt, so you can put that face on YH. All right. That's those are two very good looking people. So sounds like you got some you got lucky with the genetics there. And let me see here. So Jorge or Mr. 705 says, as a Canadian, thanks for saying that, Matt. Absolutely. Yeah, I actually I'm very happy. After the US, Canada is the second largest percentage of viewership here on this channel. And yeah, Canadians are always just like the nicest people. And it's almost it makes me question reality that like we're in a timeline where we managed to like be crappy to Canadians who I feel like are some of the nicest people on the planet and so considerate. Like it literally is, it's a joke that like they say sorry all the time because they're so nice. It's like, how could you, be mean to these people? It's insane to me. Obviously again, like every place, there's always a few bad apples and stuff, but generally I just, I guess it's yeah, I don't know. I can't wrap my head around it. But anyway, love Canada. I need to come back there soon because it's been far too long since I've visited. Although these days I'm worried about if I'd be able to come back home afterwards because with the way the border is all crazy now, it's like, even normal citizens are getting detained and misidentified and thrown in some crazy jail for no reason. So it's a little scary. And this is why our tourism is so low around here. I was just talking to a neighbor who actually works at a hotel in downtown Pittsburgh. He's like, it's insane how slow it is. He's like, it's never been this slow in a summer. And I think that's even including COVID stuff. He's like, just no one's coming anymore. And I don't think it's just Pittsburgh. It's just like, why would you come to a country where you don't know if you're going to be one, turned away, two, thrown in jail for no reason, or shipped to El Salvador or some other place? It's just like, yeah. So I feel for anyone that makes their living in the tourism industry, because I'm sure everyone's just getting crushed right now. Again, for no fault of their own. It's just it's insane. Anyway, Jorge says, in support of Mexico, I'm not buying U.S. tequila. Wait, what? Yeah, so we need to support Mexico as well. Absolutely. So, yeah, get all the delicious alcohols that Mexico makes as well. All kinds of yummy stuff there. I've actually, what is it called? I'm gonna think about it for a second. The substitute for whiskey and old fashions that is what is it called? I'm blanking on the kind of old fashioned it is, because old fashioned is my go-to drink. Someone maybe, I guess, scroll, see if anyone can fix my brain fart here, but I'm trying to remember what is the liquor that's used instead. Anyway, I'll think of it eventually. But anyway, I've been ordering more of those kinds of old fashions. Mezcal, that's it. Mezcal old fashions, really delicious, by the way, as well. But I've been doing more mezcal old fashions in my support of Mexico as well. And let me see. Looks like the spammer who found something better to do for a few months has returned, unfortunately. So I've had some protections put in place here, though, with having some slowdowns here with that. So hopefully they will move on to finding something better to do with their lives. But some of you might remember the spammer from way back when. And also, if anyone, I don't know if you guys are able to report as well, but if anyone is able to report if he continues to be a bother here, we can keep on reporting him. But he likes making multiple accounts and just saying stupid stuff. Anyway, where are we here? Jay Ferrari says, hey, man, I saw your video on why you sold the Bullet. It hit me pretty hard. I hope you make a ton of money so you can buy back your Mustang and then some. Never give up. I appreciate that. Yeah, it was tough last year. And I've kind of, I've gotten over it. It is what it is. But yeah, I appreciate that. And yeah, we'll see what happens with the channel and see if I'm ever in the position again. I mean, the thing about my Bullet, though, is I know who it went to. It went to a great person who, appreciates the car, who, was there for the whole ride of it on the channel and really is just loving it to the max, and also driving it more than I did, which is what I wanted. I wanted the car to, get out of the garage. I wanted it to, be enjoyed and live life. And it's doing that now. So I'm very happy with it, and they're very happy with it. And so I have, I would never want to, take that away from them. I think they did, back when they bought it, they said, if I ever decide to get rid of it, you have first right of refusal. But I hope that they just love it enough that they want to, keep it forever and enjoy it and pass it down to their kids and stuff. Cause I think it's, it's a fantastic car, and hope they enjoy it to the max. And so I think they are. So I'm hoping that it just stays with them and they continue to enjoy it. And Arnav says, if you had an 80 grand budget and had to keep a daily car for 15 years, what would you buy? Only other rules, it has to be sub 5060. Okay. Because otherwise, I was probably going to say something like 4Runner or something like that. So if you're talking something, I'm guessing you mean something quick, like maybe an actual sedan, like not an SUV possibly. Or maybe you're okay with SUVs as long as they're fast. If you want something that lasts 15 years and you got that much money to spend, I'd say actually my top pick for something like that, I'd probably say actually Lexus IS 500 or LC 500 if you can find a used one under it, if you're okay with a used car under that cap. Um, I'd probably say one of those Lexus V8s would probably be the way I'd go at that price point. Um, I think there's other things though that I would want that, you may have to pay a little bit, down the road for them, but if I had an 80 grand budget personally, and especially if I needed 4 doors, I would go for a used Cadillac CT5V Blackwing. That's still like the ultimate all rounder for me. I don't know if you need all wheel drive where you live, but if, because then the Lexuses wouldn't be the greatest fit there either. But if you don't need all wheel drive, Lexuses or the Blackwing, Blackwing is just, it's just pure magic still. And especially if you can get it with a manual, it's a car that will probably, get more desirable as time goes on too. All Blackwings I think will, but especially the manuals. And so that's probably my best recommendations. Again, if you have other context as far as what type of vehicle or certain brands you like or things like that, or other things you want the car to do. But as far as those two are the only requirements, those would be my best recommendations there for you. And let me see here. Fastline says, thing is, I wanted to become a member because I've been watching since 2018, but I had so much other stuff going on. No worries at all. And hopefully maybe you can get a gift there at some point as well if you're not able to do it on your own. Let me see. Vishal says cat skins seem to be common for dealers to do seat upgrades for. When I bought my Jetta last year, they had a base model in the showroom with cat skins leather seats. Nice. Yeah, it's a great upgrade. And it's very simple and yeah, just really nice. They seem to be pretty nice leather seats too. It's been a long time since I've sat in some, but the last time, I was very impressed with the quality too. I don't know if it's still the same quality these days, not an endorsement or anything, but it's nice that they do that. And Country Truck Man, thanks for stopping by. And Vishal says, do you think Lexus could put the PHEV V6 drivetrain into other models eventually, or will it stay exclusive to the TX? I don't know. I was very excited about that prospect, and I think it's something that I think they could, obviously do, but I don't know. I think because you look at NX that has the PHEV already with the 4-cylinder, and I don't think there's any reason for them to do anything different for that. So I think it is kind of unique to that car. I think the next thing you could see it in is the next generation of the LS if that comes. I'm actually kind of surprised. Because I don't think the new ES is, just the EV and then the regular hybrid. But I'm pretty sure I remember there's no actual plug-in hybrid. I was expecting a plug-in hybrid. That's kind of why, whenever they teased the ES with the charge port on the front, I didn't think it was going to be an EV at all. Because they, Toyota and Lexus haven't done this thing of regular car with electric and gas before. That's really kind of the first thing to do that. So I was expecting it to use that powertrain. But maybe it's just, again, for those larger vehicles and especially ones that have a high priority on reliability, like I think an LS buyer would. So I think LS, whenever we see a new version of that could be very likely, getting that powertrain. But aside from that, I don't see any other applications, I suppose, where that would fit. Maybe we could see it on a next gen IS, possibly. But I think it's also, like next gen IS will probably just use what NX has. So I think, they could obviously, but I think, it's kind of something that is supposed to, again, be a little bit of a higher grade and something that's a little more impressive because it is a big vehicle and it's expensive. But I think it's a great powertrain. So I hope they do put it in everything that it fits in, because I think it is a really good idea for sure. And I was so excited when they announced it. I'm like, this is perfect. You have the same amazing electrification that Toyota and Lexus are known for, and the same old V6 that everyone loves, but you don't have the inefficiency that you get of just relying on that V6 as you have it with the plug-in hybrid. I think it's great. And the Cranky Hermit, I like the username. He says, I only get about 16 mpg in my 23 RDX. Why am I such a fuel inefficient driver? And how can I get better mileage in my non-hybrid car? That's a great question, actually. So, there's some rules of thumb. There's also some things are not your fault. If you live in a place where you have very demanding accelerations you need to do for, intense mergers onto the highway, if you have, short on ramps where you live or things like that, there's some of that that can play into it. But really, the best thing is to, slowly accelerate as much as you possibly can. Jackrabbit starts, as they call them, from a stop. Really, spool up those turbos, especially in a turbocharged car. Really, sucks that down. And actually, for someone like yourself, if that is the kind of driving you do, naturally aspirated engines sometimes actually do better because they don't make peak power at those low RPMs. And even if you have to rev it out, there's a little bit more of a delay there before you start to really use that. And you're using less of that gas guzzling part of that engine's powertrain versus turbos. Again, you spool up those turbos and it's going to suck down gas really aggressively, even in those lower RPMs whenever you're getting on it with an intense throttle input. So really, it's just about accelerating as slowly as acceptable for traffic and for you. That's really going to be the best thing. Otherwise, minimize your idling as best you can. Don't use remote start. Things like that obviously are going to kill efficiency as well. But otherwise, yeah, there's really not a whole lot else you can do. I mean, because even AC doesn't really drain efficiency that much these days. But if it's a nice day and you can go without air conditioning, I think that could, sometimes help. I mean, I've always wondered though, and maybe this would be a good question for like Engineering Explained or something like that, as far as the drag you introduce by rolling down windows. Does that do worse for efficiency than just running AC with the windows up? I don't know, but that'd be the other thing. But honestly, it's really just slow accelerations. It's really the best thing you can do. There's really no other way around it in an automatic car. Now, if you're in a manual, there's other things. You get a little more aggressive with your engine braking, possibly things like that. But that really only saves your brakes more so than your gas. So, yeah, it's really just just making sure that you're not accelerating. Is the only thing I got, unfortunately. Wish I had better advice for you. If anyone else has any tips too, I'd love to hear. And Joe says, do you see the industry going back to bigger displacement engines combined with hybrids, such as going from a 2-liter turbo to a 3.5-liter hybrid? It depends on the company. You might see that for cars that aren't global cars. So if you're talking cars where, they don't have to worry about emissions ever, for the next few years, you could see some of that stuff, come back. Sorry, I'm going to get a drink. 'Cause I'm a little hoarse here. I also just have regular water because I don't know about you guys, but when you're talking a lot with whiskey, it sometimes gunks you up a little bit more. Yeah, so I think you'll probably see American companies, especially, or companies that sell stuff that's only for the States, that stuff could go bigger displacement. But I think otherwise, like Audi, they're not going to, go away from their 2-liter turbo because they still have to make sure that motor, they're still doing the same motor in Europe and stuff. So there's economies of scale that they can't throw out the window because they need that to make that business case and get the profit margins they need to get and all that. So, a lot of companies are going to be limited by that stuff. So that's going to be, and this is why I've said, you're going to see, like, we're seeing the V8 come back for the Ram and stuff. Some of those things that are specific to the American market, you're going to see companies jump at that and try and, capitalize on that while they can. But when we're talking about the rest of the world, there's still fuel economy regulations, and they can't afford to just put some gas guzzler only and stuff in America. You might see that for some performance models that are very low volume, if they can, justify the business case there possibly. But aside from that, there's just no business case there for that kind of stuff, because you have to have motors that you can sell in other markets. And that means you have to, make sure that it's going to be compliant still. And that's why you will see a little setback in fuel economy progress, but it's still going to progress because, again, the world doesn't revolve around the US. I know a lot of Americans think it does, but it does not. Like, Japan makes cars for Japan, and they're focused on the Japanese market. Sure, they're, very much worried about our market as well, and they want to make cars that Americans want to buy. But, they're not going to, throw V8s and everything just because there's a free-for-all for the next 3.5 years here, So I don't think things are going to change that much. I could be wrong, but that's my take on it. And Luke says, is it hard adjusting from your EVs to gas press cars? Like, oh, what's this vibration? Why is this thing shifting? A little bit. And it's actually kind of funny. I thought something similar the other day whenever I hopped in the Miata, and I was like, oh man, like this thing has all these vibrations. Like it is, especially Miatas, because they're so raw and it's very much that old school kind of feel where it's like, yeah, like you really feel the car is alive. And you don't get that with any EVs. I mean, even Ioniq 5, I mean, you don't get the vibrations. You get the sounds, but you don't get any of the vibrations. And so that was like, a sensory hit that I used to probably not even register as much. I mean, again, Miata has always been a little more raw than even like the Mustang and things like that. But like, it was, I think I really, really got an extra dose of that here again, because I'm so used to EVs. I think the biggest thing is checking my expectations, and making sure that I'm not expecting too much out of a gas car response wise, because and maybe it's just something that I'm now noticing a little bit more, but I think it also is truly just cars do have more lag, because I see, when I complained about this in the Honda Passport, and when I complained about this in the Tiguan, other people said I have the previous gen, or I have this car, or I test drove this car, and it is absolutely as you say it is. Like, it's a lag, it's annoying, I hate it. And these are people that I am assuming are not also coming out of an EV, who have these same complaints. But you do have a much higher expectation when you're used to EVs, then you get into these gas things and you're like, man, this is taking forever to shift down, and this is taking forever to accelerate, and for this inefficient gas engine to give me the power that I'm looking for, that I usually have from 0 RPM, straight off the line in an EV. So there are some of those things where I now have to focus on, like, okay, I mean, thankfully, because I drive so many cars, I have a very good benchmark. But if I was only in my own EVs, then I drove some gas car, I'm sure it would super throw me off. But even as it is with all the gas cars that I drive, I have to remind myself, like, this is still a gas car. This is still, this old school tech, really. And I have to, say, well, for gas, this is pretty responsive, or that, is acceptable to have this kind of a transmission thinking period because of the way things are set up these days. But there still are others, again, where you don't have that lag. And so that's why, if everyone had that same lag, then like, okay, well, it's me, but it's not me, because again, there are other cars where this isn't an issue. So, but that's the only thing I think, as there's more and more EVs and I do less and less gas stuff, potentially in the future, where it's going to be, again, just making sure I keep adjusting my expectations. Like, this is going to be slow to respond, this is going to take a while to make power, and reminding myself of those things is going to be something that I just never had to think about, that now I'm thinking about, like, okay, like, I have to have different expectations for these two cars, and saying this is good in the context of gas stuff, but not good if you're talking about the entire car world. But it's another funny question. Thanks, Luke. And Fastline says, I heard about those new speeding laws in Florida and South Carolina. I heard they are going to add more officers because school's starting back. Interesting. Well, yeah, I hope that, especially, with school and kids in school buses and stuff, you got to make sure, they're keeping them safe. So as long as the officers are doing good enforcement and not speed traps and other crappy stuff that they sometimes do, hopefully it's good enforcement. And yeah, because especially now being a parent and all that, I'm definitely frowning on reckless driving more than I used to. And let me see, Robert, thank you so much for a super chat. I really appreciate that. He says, hey bro, love your stuff, long time fan. You already know. He says, what's your opinion on engine swapping, eco to V8? I love the body of the 16, been pondering. Love you. I appreciate that, Robert. So as far as engine swapping, I mean, it depends on what vehicle you're talking about. I'm assuming when you said, eco to V6, you're talking about or V8, you're talking about the Mustangs there. Modern engine swapping, if we're talking about newer vehicles that readily have the two options easily available, typically you're just better off buying the actual V8 model, just because, even if you find a junkyard motor, and even if you can do it yourself, if you're handy enough to do it, I mean, yes, you can maybe save a little bit of money, but the problem is, unless it's a car you're going to drive into the ground, it's going to be hard to sell. And you're going to have people that are always, freaked out by that, oh, well, it's not an actual, GT or whatever. And so there's that kind of a component that's a struggle. Now, if you're talking older cars or whatever, where that's all more lax, then it's, different. And also, you don't have modern ECUs where that's a whole headache of, the car has coded itself to, be using a certain type of thing. And then, you put something else in and it just, I guess you swap ECUs and everything too, but there's just a little bit of, now there's coding and other things you got to do, and it's just extra headache. So there's some of that stuff that I think just makes it, a challenging enough thing that also, because I don't know what the price differences between EcoBoost and V8. I haven't looked at EcoBoost recently, but V8 Mustang, S550 Mustangs are not bad with the pricing, especially the older, 15 to 17s and stuff. So if you're loving the 16s there, also you get fun other perks, like the 16 GTs have the turn signals in the hood, which I always loved. That's one of the things I honestly think I missed the most, because I loved those, and I had actually forgot about them for a brief period. Then I was doing something, and I looked back at some of the pictures of the old 16 GT, and I was like, oh yeah, the hood vent turn signals, I love those. That was only on V8s on the GTs. But so, and maybe it's just me being lazy again. If you're far more mechanically inclined than I am, maybe it would make sense. Just, you got to do a lot of research to make sure, again, you don't get caught off guard with, again, the ECU being confused or, needing extra stuff that you didn't anticipate. But typically, most of the time, if someone wants to upgrade, to a different engine in a newer car, I'm like, you're better off just putting aside that mod money, saving it, putting it in some investments for a little bit of time. Maybe not a great idea these days because the market's all over the place, but in a normal world, put it in an investment, grow it a little bit or something like that in the meantime, or just, try and just stash some money away until you can make that leap up to the proper actual GT. But again, it comes down to the circumstances of everything, and so if you can find a way to do it and save some good money there, maybe it could work, but yeah, not something I typically recommend. And the Cranky Hermit, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, big thank you for being such an amazing car reviewer and fresh content. As a fellow dad to a youngster, you're doing an awesome job. I appreciate that. Thanks so much. And yeah, solidarity there with the dad life with having a kid. It's such a fun ride. Hope you're enjoying it as well, as much as I am here. It's an absolute blast. And thank you so much for the support. I really appreciate that. And I'm so happy that the reviews have been helpful for so many of you for so long. And it's something that I'm very happy that, it's my position here that I've been able to do that. I feel very fortunate. Yeah, thank you so much for stopping by. And let me see here. Where are we? We're almost out of time. So the last few questions here, and we will head out, and I'll see you guys on Wednesday. But let me see. So Triton Car Guy says, cops out here in Arizona don't seem to care if you go 5 to 10 over. I think they've seen people going like 20 over the limit, and cops don't bat an eye. Interesting. Yeah, around here, at least, or my general experience is the old saying that goes, 9, you're fine, 10, you're mine, is what I've heard. So typically myself, hypothetically, if I am not doing exactly the speed limit, typically that's my rule of thumb, is especially on the highway, if you're kind of setting cruise control or something. If I'm extra paranoid, sometimes I'll do, a little lower than that. But, I feel like I'm always like if I'm in a 70, hypothetically, we're telling a story here, I would be, setting my cruise control in like 79 usually is kind of what I do. Again, if it's a heavy cop day, sometimes just be extra safe. I'll, be just 5 over, but, that's what I've kind of heard. Once you're over 10, that's where you kind of get into trouble. And like, for example, the only time I've been pulled over for speeding is when I was doing 81 and a 65, and that's 16 over. And also the guy was running a speed trap. It was totally a speed trap zone, so who knows. But 16 over, like, that's, although around here, I don't know if it's just like Pittsburgh or just the times of days or just the weird anecdotal coincidences I see, but like I see people blow past cops, and I see like just people doing like, I mean, the speed limits around here, most of the highways are 55. Everybody is doing like 70 or more. And it's kind of funny because I don't know if you guys ever have noticed this, but in my car reviews, whenever I am doing the highway segment, I don't want to show myself, doing some, big amount of speed over the speed limit. So I usually, they're 55-mile-an-hour roads. I typically have my cruise control set to 60, and I'm sitting there in the right lane doing 60. And if you look at the traffic around me in those highway segments, everyone is passing me like I am standing still. Like you would think I was doing 45 on the highway. And so and I mean, again, like I've seen, like I'm doing 60 and the cops are rolling with all the other cars that are just doing 70. And I'm like, are there like no laws? I mean, I do see every once in a while someone get pulled over, but it really seems like they are very lax, at least in Western PA. The PA state troopers just seem like they're cool with 15 over, it seems, most of the time, maybe even more. Because again, there's been so many times in the past year or two, especially where I'm, doing a responsible speed and someone blows past me. And then like I see a cop and I'm like, oh man, they're gonna nail that guy. And they don't move. And so I don't know if the cops are just on TikTok or something, or what the deal is. They're not paying attention, but like it's crazy, like this kind of stuff people get away with around here. And Jorge, thank you so much for also helping me out there with the mezcal. Yeah, that is really, really good old fashions that way. I actually found that out from watching Only Murders in the Building, and Selena Gomez ordered a mezcal old fashioned. I'm like, that sounds interesting. I'm going to go for that. And I've been ordering them pretty consistently ever since. And S650 viewer, thanks so much for stopping by. And Trenton Car Guy says, also, since we brought up transmissions, the fact that my car has a 4-speed in 2007 seems pretty archaic. Indeed. But hey, if it works, and enjoy the simplicity, I suppose. The fact that it's in a Magnum, I think, also gives you more leeway. If it was some other car that was a little more miserable, I'd probably say it's probably a worse experience, but you're in a Magnum, which is awesome. And so, it's, it's probably not so bad. Also, Evan Loves Heaven, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. He says, hi, Matt, which car do you think is the best overall? 2022 Elantra NDCT, 2022 Mazda 3 Premium Plus, or the 2022 Genesis G70 all-wheel drive 2.0T Prestige? So the best question is always a little tricky for me because it depends on what is best for you. And that is different for everyone. So I can say what I think is best for me and my preferences and my, needs, but without knowing the context of exactly, what you are looking for from the car. It's really hard to say definitively. This is why I don't do ratings and things like that as well. But I'll take my best stab at it here. So between those three, the best car, if we're talking just best driving, best experience, if we're assuming prices are the same on all of them, so there's no advantage there or anything, or any preferences in any way as far as all-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, things like that. I'd probably say if you were giving me one of those cars, personally, I would rather have the G70 over the others. Elantra N is the most fun, but Elantra N is not for everyone as far as the extroverted nature of it. And also I've just kind of grown accustomed to Grand Tours. That's kind of, personally for me, it's a little easier to live with a daily driver that has, the luxuries and all that kind of stuff. I could, rough it in an Elantra N just fine because it's still very nice. You still have heated seats and stuff. It's far from a bad experience. But especially now, being 35 and, I just feel like Elantra N is a really fun car to have for, a while. But personally, I don't know if it would be a car that I would, want to live with forever. So that's probably why I'd go Genesis, because it kind of, is still just a fantastic handling car, a lot of fun, without, being quite as extroverted. I'm also a very introverted person, so that doesn't help, as far as that goes. But so this is why, again, it depends on your personality and a lot of other components. But I'd say G70, all things considered. Now, Mazda 3, I also adore the Mazda 3. That's a great choice as well. And again, Elantra N I still love, and I will say all day long, it's the best performance value, hands down, by a long shot. And if you are shopping compact front wheel drive things with manuals, for example, or I mean, you said DCT. So, so rewind. So, I mean, if you're shopping for automatic compact, front wheel drive vehicles, I'd certainly take Elantra N over Jetta GLI because I think it's more fun than Jetta GLI. And I think Elantra N is just, again, so fantastic for 37 grand or whatever for the DCT version. Just it's so much car. And if you're serious about performance, that's the car for you. If you're not as intense with your performance requirements, then again, Mazda 3 is great, obviously much slower. Genesis is again kind of a nice happy medium, which is why that's probably where I'd land between those three. Like I mentioned to someone earlier who's talking about the Genesises though as well. If you do go for a used Genesis, I would recommend going for a certified pre-owned one, so you get that full 10-year, 100,000 mile powertrain or the remainder of that warranty. You only get that if it's certified pre-owned through Genesis. If you buy just a regular used one, I think it drops down to 5 years, 60,000. So just keep that in mind. It's a little more expensive for a CPO one, but I'd pay the few bucks extra to have the extra warranty coverage. And the 2.0T, the only other thing I'll add is this is a car you're going to keep forever. The 2.0T, it seems to be pretty good if you find one that has been maintained well, like regular oil changes, no exceptions, like just totally good, oil changes every 5,000 miles or less. I'd have confidence in the 2.0T. But if you don't have solid records of maintenance, that motor doesn't always respond to abuse super well. So if you are, if you're buying it off of someone or you have one that isn't super well maintained, it's not going to stand up to that abuse as well. And I think if you are worried about, Elantra N also is a pretty solid, reliable platform, I'd say, but it is more stressed. It's, higher boost and all that stuff. So if you were, again, so this is again why it all depends, but if you are looking for something that's going to last you a long time without any worries about reliability, Mazda 3 is going to be the best winner hands down, because it is, going to give you that Mazda 2-liter or 2.5 liter, motor that's been, around forever, totally reliable, totally great, and just, going to be the best choice as far as that goes. So again, it all comes down to your personal preferences here. But hopefully it helps you a little bit, gives you some thoughts there. And thank you so much for the super chat. And also, if you, again, want to drill down more, you can always send me a message on Facebook if you want to give me a little more context. And like I mentioned, and I, announced yesterday, I am also doing one-on-ones with people to help figure out what car they want. And if you do the deep dive one, which is a 45-minute session, I even have a full questionnaire, which asks a lot of these same questions I just asked you, as far as, do you need all-wheel drive? Do you want, this, that, or the other? And it really kind of distills down to exactly, what you want, and then that helps me to give a better recommendation for you and what your wants and needs are and your personality. So check that out on mattmaranmotoring.com if you want to drill down more. But otherwise, happy to, again, just chat with you in a message or two as well after the fact here. But hopefully it helps you a little bit, and thank you so much for the super chat. And we are over time here, so I'm going to do the last few member questions here, and then we will sign off for the night. So let me see here. I see Vishal says RDXs are known to not get good fuel economy. It's a common complaint I see with owners of it. Interesting. Yeah, I can't remember. I think I was only getting because I did a road trip in one back when the RDX first came out for this generation. I think I only got 18 or 19 mpg, something like that. They're thirsty for sure. I mean, it's great response. It's a punchy powertrain, but yeah, not the best for that. And Bruce says, would you take the Cadillac CTS-V and the CT5e Blackwing? I love them both. Blackwing is better, it's just an evolution. But if you can't afford Blackwing, CTS-V is also fantastic. The only thing, and this is just, again, me and my personality, which I'm sure very few people share these same holdups that I do. The thing I don't love about CTS is it didn't do great in crash testing. It's not terrible, but they just didn't engineer it, it seems, for the small overlap crash test that was introduced 10 years ago or so, because it did pretty poorly on that test. Again, I'm probably only CTS-V. This is the only time you ever hear this in a CTS-V discussion, but that's the only thing I don't love about that. And I think CT5V, it's a newer structure, will perform better, although they haven't crash tested CT5, I don't think, still, at least that I've seen as far as the IHS. But I am assuming it's going to be a safer vehicle So that's why I personally would probably not buy CTSV, but I would buy Blackwing in a heartbeat. But I know most people would not get held up on that like I am, but that's just me and me being paranoid. But CTSV, I mean, you can watch my videos, whenever I had them as press cars way back when. That car is phenomenal. Such a good car. And I remember my CTSV reaction when I did the review of that. That reaction was so hilarious. There was actually a few, I can't remember who it was, but there's a few influencers that like featured my reaction in their like videos where they are like laughing at my reaction in their vlog or something. It's like it was just really funny. So anyway, but yeah, CTSV, it's fantastic. I had an amazing reaction and love CTSV to death. And Gothrocker says Mythbusters did that test. Oh, interesting. Thanks. He says you get better gas mileage with the air conditioning on and the windows up. When you put windows down and the air conditioning is off, the drag cause worse gas mileage. Interesting. Well, thank you for answering that question. I'm so happy I now know the answer to that. Thank you, Gothrocker. That's awesome. And thanks for sharing it with all of us here. That's great. And yeah, sweet. I'm so happy I now know the answer to that. I should have just Googled it at some point, but that's awesome. Thank you. And Hyper Shadow says, I've seen a channel did show, the gas mileage was best with AC and windows up above 65 miles per hour on average. On windows down, AC off below those speeds because it didn't matter much at low speeds. Interesting. Okay. I'm not sure, if Mythbusters did that same, test as far as speeds, because I guess, that definitely would make a difference what speed you're going. But that's very interesting. Let me see. Let me see. I see Joe also says really quickly, I'll try and answer this briefly. He says, if you had an opportunity to work at a car company, what car company would you want to work at and what would be the first thing you would do? Well, like we mentioned earlier, I think Honda is one of the ones. Honda and Subaru are two of the companies where like they have the potential for so much more greatness, but they just, with just part shelf stuff, like literal, like plug and play things, like the all-wheel drive Accord, like the hybrid HRV. With Subaru, again, do a new Baja to compete with Maverick, hack the back end off an Outback and call it a day. Hack the back end off of a Crosstrek, call it a day. You could have 2 trucks. Hack the back end off an Ascent, you have 3 trucks. I mean, like real low investment things that I don't think would be, big reaches. So I think if it was a company where I actually had the power to change things, like if I could go in and be a product planner or go in and be an executive that could actually like have some weight to change things, then I think those would probably be the top 2 companies, just because I think that those companies are great and have the potential for more greatness, and they're not achieving that because of the decisions that are being made. Obviously bringing back STI, again, all these no-brainers. Now, if we're talking a company where I didn't have that much power and I just wanted to work at a company that I could get behind, I think that, again, like I've said many times, I think Toyota is probably my favorite as far as especially mainstream companies, because again, the multi-powertrain approach that they've had all along, even whenever it was unpopular, they've had that. And I think that was, always the right solution. And they saw that way back when. And also, the GR products, like I said, GR Corolla is the real spiritual successor to STI. And it's my favorite car, I'd say probably under, at least 50 grand, probably even higher price tags, but like it's amazing. Obviously GR86 I love Supra. I really like the regular products that Toyota has. I like the Lexus products really well. So if it's a company where I, like if I was in a PR role where I just had to, be a cheerleader for that company all day, I'd say that would probably be the most comfortable one for me. But there's others too where I think I'd be very happy. Again, like Cadillac's doing amazing stuff. I love the way GM is going. I love that GM isn't backing down. They're still doing a bunch of the EV stuff, but also still doing like a next generation V8, because if people are still going to be hell-bent on buying V8s, let's give them a new one that's better, that's more fuel efficient as well, and try and get some gains there. But, GM is having massive success with the way they've done their EVs, and they've done them very well. And that be something that I could also, again, if I had to be in a cheerleader kind of role, could do as well. So I think those are probably the top ones. I think, I'm really excited about GM. Obviously now we have a Lyric, so I put my money where my mouth is there. I think they're doing great stuff. And so, but I think Cadillac, and especially Cadillac and Toyota, but also, just all of GM, I think is doing pretty well. I mean, there's a few exceptions. I think GM still, it's like, why did they never do a supercharged Silverado? Like that was an easy money printer, like giant profit margins, like light cigars with $100 bills kind of money you're making there on a supercharged Silverado. They never did it. And, also like Blazer is another, thing I just want to bang my head against the wall. Like, why is Blazer, especially now with Blazer EV, like, why do you not have Blazer be a competitor to 4Runner? It just like, I don't know, so I guess the GM would be two kind of things. I'd be very excited about the stuff they are doing, but also be like, hey, look, we got some easy low hanging fruit here. Like toss in, the supercharged, motor that you have in the Camaro and stuff, and throw that in the Silverado and anything else you want to throw it into, Tahoe, whatever, and just rake in the cash. But anyway, great question though, Joe. Thanks for asking that one. Let me see. I see Instant Noodle says he misses the old Super Ducks fan name. Yeah, I know it's always, just impressive that people that still remember, because at this point we're going on, I think it actually will be 8 years, or I think it's about 8 years now that I actually switched the name, which is crazy. So anyone who remembers the Super Ducks fan days means you guys have been with me almost a decade or more for many of you, and I really appreciate the long-time support. But changing the name really did open so many more doors. The second I dropped the Subaru connection, that's when I was getting all the invites to the press trips, getting more press cars, all that stuff, because car companies could work with me because I didn't have, a competitor in my name. But yeah, it was fun rambling the Subaru fan quick, in every review there. But anyway, Nicholas is driving back from Willow Springs through San Bernardino in the evening, and everyone was going like 100. It was scary. That's crazy. Yeah, especially in the desert. I'm sure it's like complete free for all. I know even like back in the day, we did our road trips for the Road to SEMA stuff I did with all the other YouTubers many years ago. We had like Hellcats and we were like driving through like 99 Palms and all those kinds of places where it's like, middle of nowhere. We're driving from, LA to Vegas, and it's a lot of empty space there, just I'll leave it at that. But yeah, it's I get it. And Shark Car Guy says here, if you're not doing at least 5 over, you're in the way. Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, I'm in the way even in PA with doing 5 over. Jay's asking if we're still liking the lyric. Yeah, we're still loving it. And I talked more about that a little bit earlier. So once this is done and it becomes a video, you can always go back and watch the earlier part of the live here if you're curious. But yeah, we're still loving the lyric. Evan, I'm glad you like the insight there. And thanks so much again for the super chat. And Cam says, hi, Matt. I know you're about to sign off, but wanted to stop in. Thanks so much for stopping by, Cam. Hope you're doing well. Hope you had a good weekend. And Comey Q says, I think Honda should bring back the Element. That's another one. Yeah, absolutely. Another thing. It's like, hello, like the boxy thing is super in right now. Like, why not do, an off-roading stuff, do an Element that is a little more rugged, but smaller than a Passport. I think no brainer. Put it on the CRV platform, make it boxy, make it a little more rugged, and it'd be great. I mean, look at how many CRVs they sell. Now add CRV, but just in a fun body style, easy money. I don't know. Maybe I'm just, ignorant or something, but it just seems like, again, so many easy things they could be doing they're missing out on. Anyway, Trent Car Guy says Mitsubishi would be my choice. I know I'm biased. That would be one to be fun to save. I just don't know if you have a whole lot of levers there to pull to save them, because I mean, they do have some other compelling products in other markets, especially the Asian Pacific kind of markets. There are some compelling Mitsubishis, trucks and other cool things, but I don't know. It just seems like they're a dead man walking here in the States with just not really having any investment. It's sad. And yeah, Joe, you're welcome. And Hyper Shadow says, good night, Matt. I can't wait for the side channel where we just listen to voice or video games and movie OSTs. Just kidding. Yeah, hopefully someday I'll incorporate some gaming here. That could be fun in the future. But I see the love and the support for that too. But yeah, thank you all so much for hanging out with me here on a Sunday evening. Hope you all have a great week here. Stay tuned for some more good stuff here coming this week. And yeah, thank you all so much for all your support on the channel always. It really is appreciated. So anyway, have a great week. I'll see you guys on Wednesday for the 1 hour live if you want to join then. Take care.